All right, welcome back to that one random podcast. I'm Cypher.
I'm Treble.
And let's get into it, bro, man. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
How's things?
Things all right, yeah.
All right, listen, we're going to get into this straight away, yeah, because this one is going to go deep. There's a lot to talk about, as always. We're going to talk about these grooming gang situations here in the UK, yeah. It's fair to say UK has a problem. And the thing, like, when I was putting this one together, it was more the case of, it's not just about talking about the grooming gangs. It's, when I say the UK has a problem, there's a problem in a sense within, not just within one group, but within many groups in the UK, I think. But not only that, through different levels of society as well.
Of course. Yeah,
it goes right to the top with this. And I thought the only way we could do it is by allowing and watching videos of people like Tommy Robinson. We're going to obviously watch Mohammed Hijab today as well, and allow everyone to have their piece and say their piece and then give our take on it.
Yeah,
I suppose on the back of it is the best way to do it. But I thought, what's the best way to open this up today? Yeah. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go through and perhaps read some articles, headlines, not the whole article, because I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing on Thingob. And they will appear on the screen in a minute, guys, as well, so for you guys. But just to give like some context of what we're going to discuss today. So it's just not me. It's not going to come from one angle. And I've been watching a lot of footage on this, and everyone is going with one angle and homing in on one point, which is the Pakistani grooming gangs, but are failing to recognize other things that have been going on outside of that in other parts of societies and race and religion, etc. and stuff like that, that I feel is being ignored as well at the same time. And I feel like it's hard. I've had mixed feelings about this one. Although I do agree with what they're saying as well about these Pakistani grooming gangs, I also feel like there's now a complete neglect of what's happening elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about that, the two-tier policing episode where...
We did the UK right ones, yeah?
Yeah, and, you know, the media always talks about these Asian grooming gangs, but then, you know, as we uncovered, the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches in Ireland and stuff have also grooming gangs at their own level. And it is interesting to see that there is a one narrative that they're pushing, but when you unpack it, it's at every level. Every level with every sort of people.
So I'm just going to read through some of these articles, yeah? So this one's from the BBC. Horrific abuse by Cornwall paedophile ring. All right, that's just the headline on its own. 21 convicted in the West Midlands child sexual abuse inquiry. And these were all white people, as you can see from the pictures. Members of Glasgow paedophile gang guilty of running monstrous child sex abuser ring. In what the NSPCC called one of the worst cases in recent decades, the trial was told primary school age children were piled with alcohol and cocaine while being subjected to a campaign of sexual depravity, including group rape, at various properties. Most child sexual abuse gangs made up of white men, Home Office report says. Bradford abuse could dwarf Rotherham, says MP. Police and politicians turned blind eye to Westminster's child abuse claims. This is Westminster, right? This is our political spectrum now we're talking about. Inquiry into child sexual abuse also criticised prosecutors but rejects claims of organised paedophile network. That's among our politicians, basically. Hugh Edwards groomed me as a school pupil, man claims. Edwards given suspended jail term for abuse images.
Hugh Edwards, the politician?
No, he's the guy that the BBC News reporter.
Oh, right.
EDL member who campaigned against child grooming avoids jail despite abducting schoolgirl.
What the fuck?
Senior member of English Defence League jailed for sexually abusing 10-year-old girl.
And these are the guys that are trying to fight against
these are Tommy Robinson's boys,
yeah.
really. Church of England forgave paedophiles and allowed them to continue working with children. Inquiry finds, which is what we talked about last time we spoke about this. UK announces rapid new review into scale of child sexual abuse by grooming gangs. Britain's Labour government came under pressure to act after Elon Musk reignited a decade-old scandal involving child sexual abuse, mainly by men of Pakistani heritage. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about today. Yeah, just to give some context to the listeners out there. What's your thoughts on that, just alone? What I've just read out, I suppose.
I mean, it's disgusting, isn't it, that this stuff is so prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also eye-opening that it is at all different backgrounds and culture. You know, you mentioned in Cornwall, which is like countryside, and you mentioned in West
brown face there.
Yeah, literally. And then obviously you talk about like Bradford and stuff, where this is what's mainly on the news in terms of the Asian grooming gangs. And then you're mentioning the church, and you're thinking that the church is supposed to be these holy figures, but they're the ones who are prolific historically with the molestation and grooming of young children. But even more concerning is that they'll put it on the news and they'll say that the church will still allow them to work with kids, and there's no law anymore. There's no more sentences. There's no more justice being served. And it's disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're getting lost on pinning the blame on a set group. I will agree with one thing, that I feel, and I haven't read the report, and I suppose I have to, it's like a 184-page report. But to get more details, but from what you can find and see, it feels maybe like their sentencing for these Pakistani grooming gangs or Asian grooming gangs, whatever you want to call them, are more lenient to a degree. Again, I would have to do my research fully into that, so don't take that as gospel. I haven't had time to really go into all of that. 184 page is a lot to read through, a hefty bit of thing to read through, right? So you probably would listen to Tommy Robinson, but take it with a pinch of salt, if that makes sense, because you really have to look into it for yourself. But I feel like the overall problem here in the UK is that we have a problem. Like I said at the beginning, the introduction, is I feel it's not just one group, it's many groups. I feel like the media, especially ones like GBN, Great Britain News, and majority of their guys on there are very much pushing it hard. Like, women aren't safe around brown faces, right? So firstly, they're trying to make it out like it's the immigrants. But the other day, I can't remember her name now. I watched the whole podcast with her. I cannot remember her name. Blonde hair, bit, she's got quite a bit of a squeaky type kind of voice, very vocal. And she continually says you're not safe walking around London. And there's that whole thing about, there's messaging on the underground about not staring at people. A
lot of messaging.
Don't stare at people and stuff like that.
And exposing and harassing. And
she turned around and said, she goes, well, who's doing this staring? We know who's doing this staring. And the staring's coming from the brown ones, basically. But she didn't really say immigrants. She just said, we know who it's coming from. It's not the British men who are doing it. The British men are on their phone. But now I sat there and I thought, what do you mean by British? Are you referring to British as in me? Because I'm British Indian. You're British Filipino. We're both born here. Are you referring to us? Yeah. Or are you referring to, and you just don't want to say it, white men? It's really hard. Like, do you get what I mean? When you were listening to it, like, what do you mean by British? Because there's so many things, like when white people say British, what they're trying to actually say to you, which is they're either saying, yeah, you're all right, you were born and raised here. Yeah. Or then there's some of them who say British and say, well, you're not British.
Because your
heritage isn't.
Or is she talking about the immigrants?
Yeah.
In terms of maybe the.
So it's hard to pick out, and you get that feeling sometimes. I got that feeling away from her. Maybe it's just me. That's just my viewpoint. You might watch and go, actually, no, I wasn't getting that. But I just felt like she was pushing. I feel like I can't remember where she comes from, but she might come from a bit of a sheltered background or something.
But is she telling the truth though? Is there an issue with people staring at girls.
No,
and maybe these people haven't grow up in the
no,
British
but what I'm saying
culture.
is who are you painting as that? Yeah, I'm not saying that's not an issue. I'm not saying that there's not immigrants who are staring and perving on women. What I'm saying is, what does she mean by British?
Non-immigrant.
Does she though?
Does she is another thing.
Because if she turns around and says, she goes, white men aren't doing that, now you're being a racist. So are you disguising your bias by saying British? Because remember, there's white people out there who look at you and say, you're not British, you're brown, you don't belong here.
But then you also do get, like I say, some sort of...
Which I could play you a clip of, it's not part of today's thing, but who's that black politician, Derek, I think his name, Lammy? Conservative Derek Lammy, I think his name is, yeah? And he was on LBC or whatever, he does like a show or whatever on there, and some old woman rang up and said that, you are not British. She goes, no, you're not English. You can be British, but you can't be English. And then she turned around and said that she has, he goes, well, you could be Irish. And she's like, no, I can't. She goes, I've got an Anglo-Saxon ancestral background. And I thought, well, you're not British then either because you're not Celtic. Yeah, technically, when you think about it, you came from Germany or somewhere like that, your ancestral background, right? But you see the mindset, and I'm wondering, did she have that same mindset when she was talking about it? And this is the bit where it starts, now you start getting worried, because now if you're going to label everyone who's non-white and start pushing that agenda, now we've got to have a bigger problem on our hands. You know, so, and I feel like some of them are pretty much saying that as well. Not all of them. Some of them are very much just saying, no, it's those immigrants or it's, do you know what I mean? But now when you're saying Pakistani grooming gangs, which Pakistani grooming gangs? Did they come here 20, 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, so that's a whole other thing, isn't it?
Because I'm first generation British Indian, so if you were saying Indian grooming gangs, you're referring to my dad.
But then there is levels between
grooming. Do you get me? And then now you're labeling
kids.
Now you're labeling them. But it's about
but you got perving on girls in public.
I'm talking about the dangers of ignorant people listening to that and how they're taking that. Right? You could be walking down a street Treble, and you're a first generation Filipino, right? So, and then someone sees you. Oh, look, there's one of them, and
I do feel like that sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it can feel a bit.
But you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, no. It is.
And this is the danger of it. That's what worries me, is the danger is that you need to be, you can't be saying, when you're saying British, what do you mean by British? And if I was saying, I go, what do you mean by British though? I go because there's many people who will say that in a different way. You may say British meaning British me, British you, yeah, brown, black, brown, doesn't matter, as long as you're born from here and you're British, and that's what I'm referring to. Or are you referring to British white? Which, with the articles we just read, you're not really safe with them either. Yeah. So, but I know it's one.
But there, I do.
That's my concern. Is like you and I walk down the street, we get battered.
Yeah, it can feel like that sometimes,
and it does feel like that sometimes. You do get like that. You do look. People do look at you, and you're like someone suddenly gets up and moves away from you because you sat down next to them. You're like, okay, that's weird, but you know why they just got up and moved away from you, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's a crazy one. But then with regards to this woman, what she was saying about British, I think though there is a difference between grooming gangs that are molesting kids and people perving on girls in public transport, because that is an issue that has become more.
No, absolutely. No. Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that point. What I'm saying is the way you're saying it and where you mean it, what are you saying? Because there's a lot of people who, and she may be one of them for all we know, who's saying, no, if you're not white, you're the problem. We're all like that.
But is she including
if you go on
Eastern European white?
I know you don't go TikTok and place to lie, but when I watch these videos and I go through the comment section, there's loads of people who say they're all like that. Get rid of them all out of our country. Shit. There's loads of comments about comments. That means you and me are in there as well. Where they're saying they're all like that, get rid of them. Meaning, basically, what a lot of these people are saying, I'm not saying this applies to all of them, but a lot of people in there are literally saying make Britain white again.
It's such a weird one as well, because obviously...
And that's my concern. Yeah. I'm not debating the fact that immigrant gangs and all that are doing what's going on. I'm not debating that. What I'm debating is how are you getting...
That's true though. Yeah, they got to be more...
you got to be careful. With the words, exactly. Like it's because
it just generates more hate. Yeah. And people will catch on to that.
And then people like you and I and many of us out there
We've become more victimized
will now fall into that thing, into that category. And now we're being looked upon as the same as, so you got to be careful with it. That's just my point of view. Yeah, that's like me saying, well, Jimmy Savile was the biggest groomer, trafficker in the history of the United Kingdom. Every white person's like that. Put them all on tags.
Shit.
Yeah. So you got to be careful when you're pushing these narratives, man. That's the way I look at it.
So what's the solution then?
I think you should be more specific about what you're saying, yeah, and be careful how you're saying it, yeah, because there's a lot of people out there who, and I'm not saying she necessarily means that, she may necessarily mean British men, like that includes you and me.
Yeah, if you adopted the culture.
However, but there's someone, I just gave you an example where Derek Lammy had an old woman on a call on his show, and what was her view? You ain't British, you ain't English. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That woman hears that and she goes, that's right. The white ones are right. It's the brownies and the blackies we got to get rid of.
Shit.
Do you remember?
Yeah,
It's all about interpretation, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to be more specific where you say, and when I say British, I mean whether you're brown, black, white, British, they're good. They're fine. It's not in our culture to be like that. However, the immigrants that are coming in, their culture is different.
And that
puts a clear line in the sand that says, right, we are dividing. We're not going to throw our British, brown and black people into that. Do you get it?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is where...
Because that's how I would have interpreted it. I know that there's British values that doesn't matter what religion or race or whatever background you've come from. If you've adopted this British value, then you come under as a British. But a lot of these people from other countries, especially the migrants, they have a different culture over there. We can't deny that. Mm-hmm. It's different over there. But they've come over here and they may act in a way or do inappropriate. And that's not to say that the people here don't act inappropriate as well.
The reason with when she said it was, which was, I don't think it triggered me, but I think made me think like, what are you thinking, right? Because when she got to the point where she was talking about Christianity, she was saying that Christianity invented all the inventions on the face of the planet. And I was like, all the best inventions came from Christianity. I thought, you do realise that the British stole most of their inventions and idea from all other ethnic.
Yeah, literally the Arab world, the Asian world. They had everything.
They took it all from there, and I'm like, what are you talking about, love?
Yeah.
So that's where, do you understand? Like,
that's ignorance, though, isn't it?
Yeah. That's where, when she said that towards the end of the podcast episode that I was watching, I was like, now I'm going back to like, what did you mean by British then? That's what worried me.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest concern for me.
And it's then how people interpret it, as you say, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about how people interpret things as well. And I'm not saying that she meant it like that. She could have meant it the way you're suggesting and the way you've taken it. But the way when I was listening to it and when you're watching,
I can imagine.
Remember, I'm good at reading people's body language.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting there, I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, like what are you getting at here?
It's scary because the rhetoric's becoming more racist. It is racism to an extent, and it's hard because obviously as we've established, we're of an ethnic background, and so we're getting lumped into a category, and the more racist rhetoric coming out, it's just fueling more hate and division. And well, it's the goal of the elites, isn't it?
Yeah.
To divide us. We probably have more in common with
each other
than we do with these elite billionaires and trillionaires. So
it's like I haven't got the clip, but I remember a caller once saying, he said racism starts from the top downwards.
Of course,
it doesn't go from the bottom up. Yeah, he goes, that's where it comes from. He goes, it comes from our hierarchy, our politicians, etc., our elites in the country. It doesn't come from the working people. The working class people will all get along with each other until you put something in place that divides them.
Yeah,
and it comes from the top down. So all these people saying might be backing politicians and saying like Keir Starmer right now, who's pushing the whole far right, and you're a racist if you're speaking out about this situation right now, this scandal. But at the same time, it's his job to keep the divide going.
Exactly,
and it comes from them, not from us. And now that's how it started. Many centuries ago, where it was, common people on the street got along with each other. But when you got politicians saying, and these and the blacks, and then you're like, oh, wow, really? Politician wouldn't lie to me, and then you bought into it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Right?
People still believe that, people still believe
I know.
politicians wouldn't lie. And I just think it's crazy.
Crazy.
With that much information out there now,
It's like,
to
can you
still
not
believe in politicians is absolutely
I just say
crazy.
to everyone, like, I never trusted them ever throughout my life. Yeah, but when Iraq happened and the WMD bullshit, I was like, yeah, that just seals it. Like, if you trust politicians after that, and a recent incident we can't talk about, yeah, you know what I'm about.
All right, yeah, the 19.
All right, yeah, we can't talk about that.
Yeah. Get you banned.
Yeah, YouTube have been coming after us a little bit over that, so we're gonna have to take a chill pill for a while. But like, if you after that, how can you trust them? That's the way I look at it. But yeah, like it does. It, like Carla said, it comes from the top down. The politicians and higher society are the ones that create that divide among us, the working
divide and conquer.
Because they don't want us to come together.
Of course,
they don't want us to come together.
Easier to rule when you're not together.
Yeah, like you said, divide and conquer. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk.
Fuck that guy.
And his attack and defending Tommy Robinson. What's your views on that, man?
Well, I mean, the viewers we've already established my opinions on space and all that crazy stuff. So for me, Elon Musk is a charlatan. I think he's, and I find it so weird as well how people suck his dick. And, he's this billionaire. No, but it's true. I know this. Like, people really do. They love this guy. They're like, yo, he's going to get us to Mars and look at the electric cars. And I just think to myself, you guys are brainwashed. Like, the guy wants to stick a chip in your brain.
You know what a lot of people don't realize, though? Huawei, the Chinese tech company.
Yeah.
They're they are far advanced than, sorry, get my words right here, far advanced than Tesla are.
Of what would have you
they
seen
would destroy Tesla.
BYD, one of their cars, their hypercars.
That's
ridiculous. You can drive on 3 wheels. You can bunny hop the car.
That's why the US abandoned him, because he's had his say in that, which is like, get rid of him.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's competition with
China's got everything already, like, well advanced.
But yeah, go on, your point.
No, but Elon Musk, yeah, I don't like the guy. I mean, I'll be honest to say, I probably once did when I was a bit more younger and immature, and probably still believed in this interplanetary future that they're selling. But when you go deep into the rabbit hole, you start to realize that they're all part of the same club, and Elon Musk is playing his perfect part in pretending to be some independent billionaire that's not part of the government, and you can trust him because he's not government. As we said, we don't trust the government. So what do? They'll throw in an independent, quote unquote, to make you believe in him now. And that's what everybody's doing, and everybody's sucking his dick. And I'm thinking to myself, nah, I can't fall for that.
You know what the thing is with him as well? He recently, I don't know, because I know you don't keep in track of like the mainstream stuff that's going on.
Nah. I'm trying not to, at least.
But the H1B debate in America at the moment.
Was that a bomb?
So no, that's basically about H1B. I think it's called visa. I can't remember.
Oh, and he's just shipped over loads of Indians.
Yeah, loads of Indians are getting shipped over.
Yeah.
The tech jobs.
The tech jobs.
But then Americans are now outraged. Well, hold on, why don't you give it to Americans? Yeah, because it's going to cost more money. Indians are cheaper. Yeah, and no offense, better. Yeah, they are the best out there. Yeah, why would you not go get the best for cheaper?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And him and that other guy, is it Vig Ramaswamy or something like that?
Yeah, Ramaswamy.
Yeah. Both of them saying similar things, saying that I think they were saying that Americans were lazy and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. So it's brought a lot of heat on him. So naturally, what do you do as a politician? I know he's not a politician; he is an oligarch. I've said this before. So what are you going to do? Divert the attention, right? Oh, what's going on in the UK? Slam. Let's put it all on this and get the Americans focusing on that. They'll stop talking about this.
Well, that's what they always put it.
That's what I think he's done.
It's a weird one as well, because look, I mean,
I don't think he's true. Like, he's not. He doesn't. I basically don't think he really gives a shit.
No, he's not the savior that everyone thinks he is.
He's not.
But having said that, that's not to deny that he will throw in some good points and still raise some real issues, as they all do. They will always tell you a little bit of truth and a little bit of good advice, and then that makes you trust them. But then they'll ultimately sell you on a lie.
Listen, I know, yeah, right. We've had our conversations about Trump as well, and I said that about before.
Yeah.
He will do some good.
Yeah.
He will bring in good things. But ultimately he will bring in the agenda of the elites without getting too sidetracked in that.
No, but these two are in cahoots now. You know, we just saw that at the election, Trump and Elon teaming up, and he's Black MAGA and these two are playing the same game.
Yeah.
And what you just said about Trump in terms of he will do some good things, but ultimately still lead to the end goal.
Yeah.
Musk is doing the same.
Yeah. And I think like he's coming out. I don't really think he knows too much about Tommy Robinson. I'll be surprised if he does. But again, look, we're going to cover Tommy Robinson a bit.
If he's a Mossad agent, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's all about free speech, but there's still one.
We said it. We're going to say it again. Just for you viewers, and maybe you're new to the channel and stuff like that, and new to the podcast. When we did the UK riots, we did a lot on Tommy Robinson again then. And we kind of proved that he is pretty much funded by a certain demographic. I'm going to be careful with saying what demographic that is out loud. How do we put it?
I don't know.
You know what's going to happen? YouTube's going to we've had a lot of problems with YouTube lately.
But even on X, this is the one topic that even if there's free speech and you can call this out and that out, this is the topic that still gets censored.
Basically, we've said that Tommy is an undercover Israeli. We're just going to say it. Fuck it. Israeli Mossad agent. There's no other way I can say it.
It's literally
which
proven.
He has. And it's proven. We know where his funding comes from.
You can go from Company House and see where the funding comes from and who he's tied with.
Yeah. And even Andrew Tate said it a few months ago when he was being interviewed by someone.
Got the picture.
I've got it. I'll put it up. And Andrew Tate when he was talking about Tommy Robinson, because Tommy Robinson, obviously them two are mates, they've known each other, both come from Luton. Yeah, and Tommy Robinson said that he goes, I would have a word with him about his conversion to Islam and stuff like that. And then Andrew heard that and he goes, well, I know who he's funded by. Yeah, so without saying it out loud, I know who he's funded by. So yeah, I'm not going to take his word as gospel when it comes to this matter of Islam. That's
so basically said it, innit?
But yeah, look, I think that covers off pretty much Elon Musk. I wouldn't take him too seriously. I'm sure there's hidden agendas in there, in my opinion. And I think he definitely, this whole H1B visa, whatever you call it, thing that's going on in America, I mean, the whole topic of the debate about that, he was very much under fire because he's part of Trump's team. And what's Trump's all about? Make America great again. Yeah. Employ Americans.
Bring jobs back and build back and all of that.
But yeah, like you said, by employing a lot of Indians, right? But that's what they're like, well, hold on, this is not what you promised us. And that was the debate. And now I feel like I'm not hearing as much about that now from the Americans. When you listen to the American YouTubers, they're all talking about this scandal in the UK from 10 years ago about these grooming gangs. So he's done his job well.
That's how they go. They divert.
Great. Cool. I'm going to play a quick clip in a second, but before I play the clip, I am going to put up, or maybe I'll put it up after the clip actually, of Tommy Robinson in his lovely t-shirt. Just to kind of show you how proud he is of that t-shirt. Exactly. He absolutely loves it.
I never saw that photo before, and so I had listened to Tommy Robinson throughout the decade, and he did say some compelling arguments when I was ignorant to the other information. But having seen all of this stuff now, having had these discussions and with the photo, you can't. But
this is what I say, like, you got to, like, this is what I say to everyone, do your own research. Just look into things. Have an open mind as well.
Question
right?
everything.
This is why I love that you and I are doing this podcast, because we have two, where we just discussed about the woman from GBN who was talking about and how I took it. Obviously, I watched it and you're just hearing it from me. And you're like, but I would have probably taken that as she means British, meaning us as well. Yeah. But I suppose it depends on the tone and stuff like that, whatever feeling she gave you. That's what's great about the debate, because you can turn around and say, well, maybe I've taken that a little bit the wrong way when you're having healthy conversations. But at the moment in the UK, we're not having healthy conversations about this at all.
At all.
It is literally it's all your fault. You did it. It's the brown ones.
It's so heated at the moment.
It's the Pakistanis, it's this, and you know what I mean? It's the Muslims, it's all that sort of stuff. It's not, there's no healthy conversation about it at all, and no one's willing to budge on their viewpoints. That's what's concerning. But I'm going to play a clip from a guy called Stephen French. You know who Stephen French is?
No.
Stephen French is a former gangster.
What kind of gangster?
From Liverpool.
Okay.
Yeah, they used to call him, his nickname was the Devil.
Shit.
Yeah, and he was a taxman, right? Basically, what a taxman is, he would go and rob drug dealers of their money. So literally, that's what he was. Yeah, and he's quite a well-known former member of the underworld in Liverpool.
It's a big scene over there. If you don't know the UK geography, the Liverpool scene is massive. It's got a port.
It's got their ports and stuff in it. That's why.
So it's where the Beatles came from. All of that. It's got a lot of great history.
Yeah, no, it has. And he just goes. It's a 1 minute clip, and he gives his view on Tommy Robinson. So I'm just gonna play that. Yeah,
go for it.
Tommy Robinson, Stephen, yeah, man. Well, okay. First off, I don't think Tommy Robinson's a racist. Don't think he's racist at all. I think he's a paid-for shill. Yeah, I think he's a Zionist stooge that purposely stirs up trouble. Him and Nigel Farage, yeah, are bought and paid for, yeah, right, by Zionist money. Now, when I speak about Zionists, yeah, you've got to be careful again, right, because you don't start going into the realms of being anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Semitic. I've got a lot of Jewish friends, and that's not like saying, oh, the white guy who says I can't be racist because I've got black friends. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you've got to understand, you've got to differentiate between Zionists and Jewish. Jews are a race of people. I want to know how they went from brown-skinned people to blue-eyed blondes. Yeah.
So what do you reckon?
Well, he didn't hold back, did he?
He didn't hold back. Well, he said what we were
straight up.
Literally, like, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
We've proven that. And if you want to go and see some of the evidence that we compiled last time round, is it episode 13?
Oof, can't remember what.
I think it's episode 13. It's called Puppets on a String.
Puppets on a String,
yeah. Go watch that episode. We break it down beautifully in that one. You were awakened massively.
I'll be honest. I had some prejudice going into it. Probably I had my own understanding, and as I said, I probably did listen to a lot of Tommy Robinson rhetoric and side with it. It made sense to me at the time, but until you hear both sides and you see the evidence against, you just go and listen to it, guys. Yeah,
and we're not going to break it down again here, but go and watch that episode. But what Stephen French is saying here is exactly what we've been saying for a while now, and I've been probably saying it for quite a while, but in that episode, we said the exact same thing. And it's interesting to see that there's quite a few people. And like I said, Andrew Tate even said, I know who funds Tommy Robinson, but without saying it. And low key did his bit, which we played in last episode on he did his research on Double Down News.
Uncovered it.
And so if you go to Company House, search this, search that, even told you what to do and what to look for, and you will verify it and find it yourself. It was a nice bit of work from Loki, UK rapper and journalist. So you got to watch out, for who you're listening to and who they're being funded to, and really start by paying attention to the detail and not just taking things at face value. I think that's
question everything. Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I think what Stephen French mentioned there, which is very important in all of this conversations that we're having, is the difference between a Zionist and a Jew.
Yeah. I think what I'm going to do now is quick, and we're going to run through some quick clips before we get to Tommy Robinson. But what I'm going to do is play a quick clip from GBN News, and this is not the woman I was referring to earlier on, just to kind of give where I'm talking about earlier on, where I feel like they're washing over certain things. So very focused on this thing and remember, this is a scandal that's 10 years old now.
And it's just resurfaced.
Yeah, and it's resurfaced now, right? But it's how they I feel like the way she downplayed certain things. She goes, yeah, we know this and that, but this is the real problem. I'm like, no, you just stated another problem as well. Like, it's all a problem. Like, I'm not saying don't look into the Pakistani grooming gangs or whatever you want to label them. They went from Muslim to Pakistani to now Asian or whatever you're calling them, yeah? Right, I'm not saying not look into them and not investigate it. But what my opinion is very much, it all needs to be looked into, yeah? We're here talking about the safety of children, regardless of what background they come from, regardless of who's committing it. We need to look into all of it. But I feel like, again, this is where people are pushing agendas. But you watch the clip and you tell me what you think about it, yeah?
Yep.
So let's just roll it.
out into the open. We need a national inquiry. I want a name and shame. I want to know what's going on in Bradford, Rotherham, Rochdale, Peterborough.
I am convinced that Labour is serious about dealing with this, than that Yvette Cooper and the Home Office is
right, let me ask you this on behalf of some of my viewers, because I know they'll be shouting this at the screens. You just referenced then that statistic, which is accurate. 85% of paedophiles, child abusers, disgusting people are white. No one disputes that. But that's not what we're talking about. And what I wonder is, have you read things like the transcripts? The sentencing transcripts of these gangs?
I haven't. That statistic is relevant because otherwise it's possible that people will go away with the wrong impression.
No, hold on. This is why I need to understand whether or not you've read the transcripts. Why haven't you availed yourself of that information? Because this is very publicly available. It's been circulated more than wildfire at the moment.
It's not my job to deal with that issue.
Well, can I make a suggestion, a respectful suggestion to you? And I'm going to make this to anyone else that wants to, pipe up about this 85% statistic, which is accurate. I'm not disputing that statistic. There is a fundamental difference, and you're all disgusting, by the way, whichever creed or nationality or skin colour or belief set you've got. If you abuse and touch children sexually, you disgust me. You make my skin crawl. Notwithstanding any of that, there is a complete difference. It is a completely different set of crime when grown men are basically scouring the streets to look for girls, predominantly based on their skin colour, based on a lack of respect for that skin colour, and torturing them. If you have read these transcripts, and I implore all of you, if you haven't looked at them, you must read these transcripts, because when you read these transcripts and you see what these men, these disgusting creatures did to these little girls, you won't ever, in these conversations, again, I don't think, 10 round, when we're discussing this and say, yeah, but most paedophiles, 85% are white, because you will know that this is a completely different set of, it's a kettle of fish that is so different. These men, these creatures, disgusting, they were torturing these girls. They were doing the most horrific things to them, sometimes not just to the point of death, but over that line, over that point of death. So please, Mike, everyone, read these transcripts, and then I'll ask you about them again when you have, and I bet my bottom dollar you will also see what we're talking about. This is a very different thing, and I would say it absolutely does need a national inquiry. We need to understand the scope and scale of what this is, where this is, who is still doing it, because it will still be happening, believe you me, and get it sorted out. Stop saying mistakes will happen. They've already happened. What you need to do now is understand it, be honest about it, and stop it happening now and in the future.
All right, your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's first and foremost, it's fucking disgusting. Yeah. Abusing children is never right. And
we both agree on that.
We've said this throughout.
100% agree. We're not defending anyone here.
Never.
We want it all dealt with.
Of course. But I think what she's trying to highlight, though, is that there is a difference between grooming gangs, organised crime, compared to then just pedophilia and general abuse, like an uncle touching a niece kind of thing, compared to a grooming gang, which are targeting, it's a group of men with underground basements, and they've got maybe 10 or 15 kids in there, and they're doing really, really extreme acts. And this grooming gang stuff is growing, and to lump in all forms of pedophilia and abuse isn't the right way to approach it.
See, I just feel like, I get. I'm not saying I disagree with what you're saying, that the grooming gangs it's a bigger scale, but I think if you asked individual who was abused, a child, or who's now an adult or whatever, and asked them what it felt like for them, they would turn around and say it was torture for me.
Of course.
And I think that's insensitive for her, what she's saying. Yeah, and I feel like she's washing over the fact that she's, and the way she was saying, we know 85% of paedophiles are white in the UK, whatever, stop talking about that, just talk about this. That's the impression I was getting from her, which was, who cares about that? Yeah, we know that, whatever, doesn't matter. That's not as bad as this. But if you ask those individuals who are being abused by individual paedophiles and ask them what it felt like for you, they will say it was torture for me. So you're kind of like downplaying their suffering and their pain. I'm not saying that what these grooming gangs are doing. I've not read the transcripts. She clearly has. Yeah. Like I said, it's 184 pages or something like that. Yeah. And yes, when you read it, you say, oh my God, they tortured these kids. Yes, they did torture these kids. I'm not denying that, right? There are stories, it has come out that, the things that were happening in those group rapes or whatever you want to call them. But I think it's insensitive to the individual person who might have suffered at the hands of an individual what that situation felt like to them. You're downplaying their pain and their suffering by saying, well, we know that, forget that.
I see where you're coming from.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I feel like you're ignoring that. Yeah, and that's not a nice feeling for the person who says, so what, my pain is less than what their pain is. I feel for them and they went through but I went through torture as well. I didn't want to be in that situation. It hurt. It was painful for me. My life's not the same.
Of course.
Me and my partner, he can't touch me in a certain way. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, it's trauma.
It's trauma, right? So I feel like you're downplaying their suffering by the way she's done that. And again, you need to be careful because an individual might be sitting there saying, well, hold on, I went through that with my uncle or my dad or the old man down the street or whatever for years, and it was torture for me. And I couldn't tell anyone. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Or the Jimmy Savile victims.
Yeah.
You're downplaying their pain. Now, remember, Jimmy Savile was also a trafficker as well.
See, I would lump him into a grooming gang category.
But he was an individual one as well, wasn't he? Yeah.
He was maybe
both
head leader of a grooming gang.
No, but if you look at the stories, like if you watch the documentaries, he in my opinion, he was both. Mm-hmm. He was a trafficker and grooming gang or whatever you want to call it, but he was also an individual paedophile as well. Like he would go and prey on individual girls as well on his own.
The rest of the lot, yeah.
He was everything, yeah. So how are you making them feel right now? And I think like she's ignoring that and washing over that pain and that suffering of those individuals to say, well, this is worse. Well, I say my reply to that is, yes, it was really bad. It's really horrific what happened to those girls in the grooming gang situation. Absolutely, because there was some serious extreme stuff that took place there. We'll hear Tommy Robinson in a minute. He'll talk about the kind of things they're saying to them while they're doing it. Yeah, which is horrible to listen to because you're like, oh my God, imagine what it's like on being on the other side of that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you can only try and imagine. You won't even still feel it because you'd be like, I'm never going to understand how that felt. Yeah. But she's ignoring that. She's ignoring the individuals that are suffered from at the hands of individual predators. And I think that's wrong. Yeah.
But she did say, though, that, all forms of...
Yeah, but I feel like
disgusting. And
but I feel like she was saying that because she's just to prevent herself from getting any backlash.
But that could also be true. And as she said, we haven't read the transcript.
No, but I'm not saying that. Even if I read the transcript, I said, that's really horrible. But I still wouldn't ignore the pain of the individual ones that are out there as well, because you've got to take them into consideration. I think it's insensitive to not take them into consideration and not say that's important to talk about as well. To say, stop talking about that, talk about this, focus only on this. This is the way she's come off there is very much, we know that goes on, whatever. Yeah, this is what matters because these lot went through a lot more than the other ones. I'm like, but how did you know that? That individual out there might be sitting going, actually, how do you know that? Were you there? How do you know what I went through? Yeah, and I think it's insensitive the way she's done that, first of all. Second of all, I feel like where she's saying, I think they're all disgusting and all that. I felt like she threw that in because she realised like how she was coming off.
Across, yeah.
And political. This is how, because remember,
cover her back.
News anchors are also politicians.
Of course.
So to cover her ass, so there's no comeback on her. Yeah, she's turned around and said, "Oh yeah, but it's all disgusting. Don't get me wrong." But then she quickly said that, and then went back to what her narrative was. And again, that's dangerous for me. Yeah, because you're now ignoring the individuals out there, and those people probably already felt alone in those situations. Who do I go to? I can't go to anyone about this, etc. How are you making them feel now? That my story's not important anymore.
I can see
there's a kid out there right now who's being sexually molested. They just watch this. I better keep my mouth shut because they don't care about this anymore. They don't care about people like me, the individual who's suffering. They only care about these group gangs.
Extremities, yeah.
Yeah. That's that. If I can't say definitely I would feel like that, but I might feel like that. If I'm watching it and I'm the kid being abused by the old man down the street or the whatever, or the woman or whatever, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching her say that, I say, oh, okay, I better keep my mouth shut then, because they don't care about this. They don't care about the ones like me. She's telling them to ignore the ones like me and just focus on these group grooming gangs or grape gangs, whatever you want to call them.
But so where do you? Because if there is organised crime amongst a group of people in an area that is causing harm to multiple children in the most horrific ways, should there be more focus on that? Given that the other cases aren't necessarily as extreme. Of course, look. First of all, as you said, look, it's torture. At every level. I
think we have enough money in this country. We're one of the richest countries in the world, and we have enough money to go after every single one of them at the same time.
I agree with that as well.
You can have one team or multiple teams going after the grooming gangs, and then you can have multiple teams going after singularity predators out there. There's no excuse in this country, in the United Kingdom. That's what I think. Yeah, not let's put all our focus into this. No. Let's put our focus into every aspect of it and nail every single one of them to the wall. That's what I think. There's no excuse in this country. If we've got $3 billion a year to give away to Ukraine,
don't get started on that one.
No, but I'm going to say it. If we've got $3 billion a year, and then he said recently, you heard what he said, that once the Ukraine war thing is over, something for the next 100 years, we're still going to be supporting them with a new deal with other investors like BlackRock. We're going to go deep into all of that. We'll talk about that later on, another episode. But if we've got $3 billion in a year to give to Ukraine, then you've got $3, $4, $5 billion to invest in this and go after every paedophile out there. Grooming gangs, individual predators, whatever they are, politicians, whatever, you've got the money to go after it. That tells me you've got the infrastructure and the money to do that.
It raises the next question then, which is maybe that the people who control the law and who would judge the law are in on it as well.
Well, we're going to get into that in a bit as well, mate. Yeah. All right. But next clip I kind of want to play is kind of like an Indian outrage clip.
Indian outrage?
Yeah. So the Indian community are outraged at the government for labeling these gangs now, whereas before it was Muslim grooming gangs.
Yeah.
Now we're hearing Pakistani grooming gangs, but the government have been saying Asian grooming gangs.
That's what I heard.
And they are now, the rest of the Asian community, which is Indians and the Sikhs, are furious because now they're being labelled and lumped into it as well. So I thought, let's play this clip. It's a report from an Indian news media outlet. It's in English, don't worry. And then we'll give our thoughts on it. I'm back with it.
Okay.
Yeah?
British Indians are expressing strong outrage over the use of the term Asian grooming gangs by the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer during a debate on sexual exploitation. Now, the Indian community in the UK feels that this phrase unfairly indicates that all Asians in crimes committed primarily by individuals of Pakistani descent, further tarnishing the image of Indians and other unrelated Asian groups as well. The controversy began when Starmer used the term while defending himself against criticism from billionaire Elon Musk. Many in the Indian community believe that this is not just inaccurate, but it is also deeply insulting and harmful. Krishna Ban, the chair of the Hindu Council UK, voiced her concern about this particular situation, saying that the term Asian unfairly steams people of Indian origin and other unrelated communities as well. Ban also highlighted the tragic irony that many Hindus and Sikh girls have been victims of such grooming gangs. She stated, "Why use Asians? It seems everyone, including Indians, who are not involved in these crimes. Our Hindu and Sikh girls were also their victims." Now, her words resonated with many in the British Indian community who feels that lumping all Asians together undermines effort to address the real issue and protect vulnerable victims. On the other hand, Jay Shah, the spokesperson of the Friends of India Society International UK, further criticized the usage of the term. He explained that Asian is a broad category that includes many nationalities such as Indians, Japanese, Vietnamese and Sri Lankans. and none of whom are involved in these crimes. Shah questioned why politicians fail to be very specific when discussing such sensitive topics. He stated, and I quote, "When it comes to grooming gangs, we are called Asians. When it's about Kashmir, we are suddenly Indians. Why can't they be accurate?" Now, Shah's comments highlight a broader frustration among British Indians about the inconsistent and often politically convenient labeling by the UK politicians and the media as well. The Sikh community has also raised strong objections. Sikh Youth UK, an organization that has spent over 15 years supporting grooming victims, shared heart-wrenching accounts on Sikh girls who have suffered at the hands of these gangs. Deepa Singh, the head of Sikh Youth UK, stated that his organization has dealt with thousands of cases involving Sikh victims, many of whom were groomed while in the care system. Singh criticized the usage of vague terminology, saying that we have rescued Sikh girls who were groomed and neglected in the care system. Now, these crimes need to be addressed with honesty, and those who are responsible must be named. Similarly, the network of Sikh organization expressed disappointment, calling Starmer's use of the term extremely vague and misleading. They argued that failing to specify the ethnic or any religious background of the majority of the predators contribute to a lack of accountability and justice for the victim. Now, shifting our focus to the Hindu community, then they have also been proactive in raising awareness about the issue. The Hindu Council UK has run numerous campaigns through temples to educate people and protect young girls from falling victims to grooming gangs. Leaders in the community believe that the continued use of misleading terms like Asian grooming gangs undermines their effort and casts a shadow over innocent people. They argue that being specific of the identity of those who are involved is very important for addressing the root cause of these crimes and preventing further exploitation. Now, the outrage from British Indians and other Asian communities is not without justification. Statistics actually reveal that over 85% of convicted grooming gang members in the UK have been of Pakistani descent, and that is according to various reports. Back in 2020, Home Office report also highlighted that most of these people share common ethnic or any religious background. Furthermore, Sikh and Hindu organizations have documented hundreds of cases where girls from these communities were targeted, further demonstrating that these crimes are not confined to any single demographic of the victim. The issue has gained national attention right now, with many organizations calling for urgent reforms. Both the Hindu Council UK and Sikh Federation UK have joined call for a national inquiry into grooming gang, believing that such an investigation could uncover the truth and provide justice to the victims. Now, these gangs argue that using vague terms like Asian not only harm innocent communities but also hinders the ability to address the crimes effectively. Now, this controversy follows earlier debate on the same issue. In 2017, Labour MP Sarah Champagne resigned from her position as Shadow Inequalities Minister after stating that Britain has a problem with British Pakistani men exploiting the white girls. Though, let me tell you that her comments were widely criticized for the bluntness, they also underscores the need to address these crimes with greater transparency and honesty maybe. The resignation reignited discussions on the role of political correctness in addressing sensitive issues. Now, British Indians, along with Sikh and Hindu organizations, are now demanding accountability from politicians and media. They want clear and very specific terminology that does not implicate innocent communities and stronger focus on supporting the victims. Many feel that current approach, which avoids direct naming the people, is more about protecting political interest than addressing the problem. They believe that this not only harms the credibility of the government but also put more girls at risk. This issue is about more than just a language. For British Indians, it is a matter of fairness, justice, and protecting their communities from being unfairly stigmatized. By addressing these crimes openly and honestly, politicians can actually ensure that victims receive the support that they need while restoring trust among the UK's diverse community. Without change, British Indians fear that both the victims and innocent communities will continue to suffer.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's we shouldn't actually label it. Regardless, actually, if it's a grooming gang, it's a grooming gang. Doesn't matter what race or background supposedly these people are from. And I think, yeah, it creates a lot of hate and division, and it is politically targeting for whatever reason to push their agenda. I think it was interesting as well. She mentioned how a lot of it can happen in the care home system, in the care system. You know, where this is people that we're supposed to trust. It's one thing to say there's a demographic that's, you know, on the streets kidnapping girls and abusing them, but to say that they're in a hospital or an institution where these children are supposed to be under people to care for them are inflicting the abuse is also really, really hard.
Another thing that brings me back to some of the stuff as well is that, like, do you now start labeling certain organisations as grooming gangs as well, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about the Church of England, right? And its scandal. I read the headline before, and I said this last time as well, is if you're going to start labeling people or labeling groups like Muslim grooming gang, then surely you would label the Church of England as a Christian grooming gang, right? Because that's what they are. They're Christian, right? But not only that, you look at the care home situation that she just mentioned. That caught my attention as well when I watched this the first time as well. I was like, wow, okay, cool. So how are they getting hold of these girls from the care homes? Who's supplying them to them? Yeah. We know care homes in this country have a strong history of child abuse. Yeah. Okay. Where kids are abused by the carers in the home.
Yeah. I've heard that.
Yeah. Okay. And these could be a mix of races, white, black, Asian, etc., and all that sort of stuff. So pigeonholing it, like, I agree with what you said. We should just be labeling them as grooming gangs, not saying white grooming gang, Asian grooming gang.
Identity politics is where
it's way out of control.
Yeah,
just label it what it is. They're grooming gangs. They need to be dealt with. Yeah, got nothing against that, but this is where now it's like, well, the politicians playing that game of divide and conquer. Yeah, so we don't all come together as one and say, actually, enough's enough. Forget about the labels. That just needs to be dealt with now.
Yeah.
That needs to be dealt with now. Those 85%, or all those paedophiles, not just the 85% who are white. All of them need to be dealt with now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're a pedophile, that's it.
Why did he get away with it? We want to understand why he got away with that. Explain that to us. Do you understand? If the evidence is there, why is he or she got...
The justice system is so fucked.
Shit, yeah, I know.
You get more time.
But then that's the next thing you should be asking. We need to reform the justice system. How is this happening?
Well,
why are there these loopholes and whatever's going on in that area? Do you get what I mean? But instead of that, we're fighting amongst each other. Who's to blame? Which group's to blame?
I'm quite surprised that Keir Starmer, because I don't listen to the guy, I hate the guy, I think he's a piece of shit.
I listen to him sometimes because sometimes...
He's a World Economic Forum puppet, innit? And I think what he's done for the country is ridiculous. However, when he was put into power, as we said at the beginning, you know, he put a lot of... If you're a right wing and he's labeled right wings, and if you're a British and you hate that, you know, you can leave the country. So he's isolated native white people, but then to still call it out as Asians, he's not. I don't know which side he's.
But
what is he on about?
But it was even like that under the Tories, right, where you can't even fly your British flag anymore, your English flag. And this is what makes me laugh. You know what makes me laugh? If I was sitting there, if I was sitting there in front of Keir Starmer or even Rishi Sunak or Boris Johnson, whoever it was, whoever put this policy in place, because remember, Labour's only just taken over.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Tories have been running the country for the last 14 years, right?
Yeah.
So the British flag thing has been around since their tenure, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I would be sitting there and saying to him, I go, okay, so you're saying that we can't fly a British flag because it's offensive. You can't fly an English flag because it's offensive. So does that mean now people can't wear an English football top anymore? At Wembley, they can't wear it because you're still flying the flag. That is the flag on your body, though. Mm-hmm. You're wearing it as a shirt.
Yeah, that was really weird times. I remember
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Cab driver, and he put the flag on his taxi.
I got arrested for it.
Yeah. And they said you have to. I think they got pulled over and they said you have to take
Someone rang up about a guy who put a British flag outside his house on one of his windows. Someone called out and the police came and said, "Yeah, is that yours? Yeah, all right. Well, we're here to arrest you because you're not allowed to do that. It's
crazy because you could do that with any other flag. You want to put a rainbow flag, you want to put a Palestinian flag, you want to put Israel, whatever other flag.
A British flag, Iranian flag. No, you can't have it.
Crazy.
Like, which is dumb. I just think it's the stupidest thing. And but again, is it by design? Great divide.
I think once you start to listen to what we're saying and you start to do your own research and you start to wake up to how the world really runs, nothing is by chance, nothing is coincidence. Everything is by design, and there's puppets and there's puppeteers.
What else I would say to that as well, again, right? So granted, I get what these organizations are trying to do, like the Hindu and the Sikh organizations are trying to do. Remember, I'm a British Indian, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I went to pretty much 85% all Asian school. Okay. Then the next ones were like pretty much made of blacks. And then there were a few very small percentage of whites. Yeah. A lot of girls I went to school with who were Sikh and Hindu who confided in me, I'm not going to mention names and stuff, of course, and shared some disturbing stuff about their own abuse they suffered. And it happens a lot, Treble, in the Asian community. It's just swept under the rug because the girls are afraid to speak out. And I think Tommy Robinson, when we play one of his clips, he's going to touch on it in a bit. Where their fathers, their uncles, and this isn't just about touching, this is actually
shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or the old man down the street, or the older boy down the street. Do you know what I mean? Or even the same age. You know what I mean? A lot of that happens within the Hindu and Sikh community. It's just not spoken about out loud because the girls are afraid of being labelled as slags, basically. Because it's so taboo. Because the first question people say is, "Oh my god," they don't say, "Oh, that's terrible." It's not terrible. What the first thing that within the Asian community as a whole, even Hindus and Sikhs. Remember, I'm Hindu, right?
Victim blame.
So the first thing they do is they say, "Well, what was she doing with the boy? Why was she talking to the boy? Oh, but have you seen the way she dresses?"
Yeah,
that labeling sort of thing comes along. So it's not like it doesn't happen in Hindus. It's happening just from the Pakistani guys. In what they're giving you a description, just to make it clear to everyone, is they're saying that obviously the grooming gangs are targeting Sikhs and Hindus as well, girls as well. Cool, granted, get that, but don't mistake that for that it does not take place within those groups, Hindus and Sikhs, on a singularity level, on an individual level. It happens a lot. I had an ex-girlfriend who went through it. Yeah, it happens a lot. You'll be surprised and shocked how many girls are probably out there right now listening. If they're listening to this, yeah, I'll probably sit there nodding their head and go, "Yep," and they cover it all up because they're afraid that it's going to bring bad, and not just on them, but their family, their parents, etc. Blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. Because remember, you live in such a modernized world. Naturally, we're westernized. Yeah, so we live and dress the westernized way, right? We adopt it, right? Mm-hmm. But then when something like that happens, they know they automatically think, well, people are going to start blaming me for this and et cetera, so they just stay quiet.
And the abusers are Hindus and Sikhs.
Yeah.
So then, just to understand their rationale, like the Starmers and these people, as I said, like I don't think we should be putting any label in terms of their identity as a reason to justify or to label it.
Put it this way,
say Asian, but what you're saying though is
put it this way,
is Asian in that situation.
My mum has told me stories about certain members of my family, yeah, who I'm not very close to my mum's side of the family anyway. Yeah, I don't do family. Yeah? I do my immediate family, my sister, nephews, and all that sort of stuff. But my mum, when she told me younger stories of certain members of the family, when she told me that, I could not look at those individuals. These were uncles of hers and blah 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 the same way ever again. When I was little, they would play with me and all that stuff. And now when I got older, I'm like, yeah, you're right, yeah, kind of thing. But I can't say anything because it's taboo, right? It's swept under the rug. And that's within my own family, I'm telling you that. Yeah, I know stories of not uncles, but uncles who are married to my aunts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, men who are married to my aunts who have tried it on. My family, mum's side of the family is big. Yeah, who have tried to do something with another sister and forcibly taken. Yeah, so, and this is something that they all went through.
And why does this happen though? Why is this happening so much in? Is it something to do with culture? Is it biological? Is it environmental? Like what? Why is this happening on such a scale?
Do you know that's a hard question to answer. Yeah, I think it is. I think a lot of it is. I have to say it's cultural. You go to India, for example. Yeah, what happens every 18 minutes in India? A rape.
Bro, I saw this picture. I don't know if I can pull it up, but there was a picture of a graveyard, and they would put like a prison bar on top of the graves because there's cases where people would dig up the bodies of these people and do shit. Yeah, I think it was in India, and it was like,
and
what the fuck?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm an Indian. Bar. I'm an Indian, and I'm telling you now, it is cultural as well. Yeah, if you go to India, dude, every 80 minutes, I think that's the statistic, there is a grape.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. You will see it. There's like, and it was a bit stupid as well. Like, so I watched a couple of months ago of a Brazilian couple who were traveling through India, and I thought, well, that's stupid. First of all, you've not even got any security with you. Yeah. That's how stupid of you. And I do blame the husband as well, because you're the protector. Yeah. I'm going to blame the husband on this one. Yeah. So they go past, they're parked up somewhere, and this is in going through the rural villages, which is the worst place to be. Worst place to be, yeah, because they are so backwards in their viewpoints when it comes to women. Even in India, it's bad, dude. Yeah, like you hear some of the stories. I remember watching that documentary which kicked off in Delhi years ago, a protest, which protests are still happening out there, where women are saying we need to be protected, and rightfully so, of a torture of a woman on a coach or a bus or whatever by some men. It was disgusting. Yeah, I don't even want to give the details because I'm worried that YouTube might us. Yeah, all right, it's that bad, like that bad. But anyway, this Brazilian couple, then get approached by local village lads, and they're just like touching things, and he's like, oh, they're just being curious or something like that. And then in the end, he goes like, maybe we should go. So he takes his wife, and they've got bikes that they're traveling around, and they're on their own through India, through the backwater villages. Like, I was like, are you nuts? Even I know that. No, that's a no-no. Don't go there with your wife on your own as a foreigner. Goes through there. Then for some reason, they get into the town, and they couldn't find a place to stay or sleep or something like that. He decides to his wife, she goes, oh, let's go back there, that spot we were. Those guys are probably gone. Let's tent up there instead. We'll put up our tent there or whatever, innit? And just sleep tonight. I was like, no, man. You need to find a room where you can lock and stay in. Anyway, he goes back, takes her with her. She goes, oh, I'm a little bit scared of this because those guys were a little bit weird. And he goes, oh, I'm not scared. I'm like, you idiot. And what happens? Those lads are still there.
Are they? Fuck.
And what happens is, imagine what happens.
And where's the husband?
The husband, they pinned him down and beat the shit out of him while they took turns on her.
That's mad. And the reason for these, well, you're saying culture, but where does it stem from? Like how?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Even in India, right, Hindu, Sikh, whatever, right? Okay, even here, yeah, like the older generation, especially, and it does get passed down to the younger generation as well. Don't get it twisted, right? Is that women are essentially second-class citizens.
But you could drive around the back villages of England and nobody's going to
no one's going to do shit. No one's going to do that shit. But in India, they it's just their mindset. Like when I told you about the one which led to a protest, right? When they talked to the mother, remember these men who did this to this girl in Delhi, she was very modernized because she's from a main city, student, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. They saw her with a boy, and because they saw her with a boy and they thought, well, she's a slut then, isn't it? Free for all, right? That means we can do it.
That's crazy.
That's the mindset. Do you understand? When they got in prison for life and they got sentenced to death, I think as well. When they asked the mother in the village or one of these perpetrators, mother said, "Well, he didn't do anything really wrong. You know, it probably was the girl's fault.
That's what the mother said.
Yeah.
The mother of the girl.
The mother of the guy who one of the guys who did it to her.
Oh, that's fucked.
It was probably her fault. So if you're raising your son like that,
yeah,
what's the outcome going to be?
You're condoning it, innit? You're allowing it.
You're allowing it.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around where this comes from.
It doesn't work like that. Because I remember in my mum's side of the family, hell no. None of my aunties would ever say that, right? My uncle wouldn't say that. Yeah, okay. I'm talking about like immediate, like my grandparents' kids. None of them would ever say that. Yeah, we weren't raised like that at all. Yeah, but I know full well, and like my mum, she would never let my sister or even me sleep at someone's house that she wasn't comfortable with.
Shit.
Yeah. And sometimes she would say, no, you're not going to stay in that person's house. And not just because she goes, I don't know what might happen. Just out of fear that what if you're wronging? The man of the house is a wronging. She doesn't know. It's just out of fear. And I always said to her, like, Mum, and then she'd be like, she's like, you don't know, I know. Because they've seen it and experienced things.
They know what people
within our culture.
Yeah.
So to turn around and say that the Hindu and Sikhs are upset by this, or maybe I don't know if they're Sikh and Hindu grooming gangs. I don't know. Yeah. But what I can tell you now, within both those groups, a lot of it happens.
Yeah.
And there is a lack of respect for women that some of them are just pieces of meat. And it's wrong, but it's sad. It hurts to say that, but it's the truth. And there's a lot of them that aren't like that. I'm not saying they're all like that, but there are a lot of cases like that, man. Believe it or not. I know a girl from school, right? All right. She never confided in me or anything. Like, we weren't close or anything. And she just disappeared once. I never questioned it. Maybe she's moved to another school, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Years later on, I found out from one of my boys, who I still talk to now, there's my two best mates from school. And he said, do you know what happened to that girl? And I go, because we would talk about school, wouldn't it? Like reminiscing a little bit. And then we talk, yeah, that was fucked when that happened and that kind of thing. And he goes, do you know what happened to so-and-so? And he's referencing this girl. Sikh girl. She goes, she went to, I go, yeah, I heard something happened with her. I don't know what the ins and outs of it all were though. He goes, yeah, her brother, who I used to play football, he was like a year older than me. I would play football with him sometimes, was molesting her at home. And she had to get taken into care.
The brother
was molesting her. Like, that's deep, bruv. That's your brother. And this is a Sikh family. So don't get it twisted. Don't think it doesn't happen. It's just swept under the rug. Or in her case, I think she just had enough and she obviously got help. But most of the time it's swept under the rug. You won't even hear about it.
So then,
and the girl stays. It's not swept under the rug. The girl stays silent.
Yeah,
that's the problem. But if they all started speaking up,
the amount of cases.
Wow, the amount of cases you would get, crazy.
I can imagine. So this Indian report has technically also been giving out misinformation to say, that the Sikhs and Hindus aren't.
But remember, like in India right now, you've got Modi in the Prime Minister Modi. He's very pro-Hinduism, yeah? And he is apparently making it very difficult. I don't know the ins and outs of politics. I could be wrong with this, but from what little bits that I've heard, that he's making it very difficult for like Muslims and Sikhs in India as well. So pushing a narrative, right, that these guys are the problem, don't include us in it.
Yeah. But it's never that.
It's never that simple. It's never that simple. So that's why I said, like, don't. That's why I interestingly wanted to bring this up, because I'm hearing Tommy Robinson and all these guys talk about it. I'm like, Tommy, do you really know? Sit with me and I'll have a conversation with you, mate. Like, if I sat with Tommy, I go, Tommy, do you really understand the depth of it within the Asian community? That it happens within the Sikh and Hindu. Maybe not in the grooming gang situation, yeah, but it does happen massively.
Of course.
On an individual case-by-case situation that never gets reported. But again, it happens everywhere. Like you said, it happens everywhere. I'm just doing it because obviously what they're saying in this clip that we just played. Don't get me wrong. We know it happens everywhere. White, black, brown, doesn't matter. It happens everywhere. Yeah, right? But I'm trying to convey a message here is that don't take this report you just saw and think, oh, well, Hindus and Sikhs don't do anything. Or it's very minimal within their community. It's not. It's big in their community as well, but on the singular case basis, if that makes sense, rather than a grooming gang situation. But yeah, there is a lot around culture, man. There's a lot around culture. I think there's a lot around culture. I think a lot of it's how are women perceived.
So that's probably where the culture comes from back in the days.
Yeah. Which is wrong, but it can. But remember that mindset can also get passed down generationally as well.
I mean, the patriarchy.
Not everyone. I'm not saying I don't want anyone going out there thinking every Hindu and Sikh's at it. No, but it does happen in a big way, and it gets unreported. But again, we know full well that a lot of sex abuse cases, whether it be minors, adults, are unreported. You know that for a fact.
Of course, yeah.
And even men who are abused, or boys who are abused, unreported.
Yeah, a lot, actually.
I think we focus so much on the girls, we forget about the young boys, and we forget about men who also get.
Well, that's the thing within the Catholic churches and the church grooming gangs, because that's what it is. Young boys are actually probably more of the victim, because they're in like the altar choir services and stuff.
But it's even worse. Like, I'm not going to say it's even worse, because that would be wrong. But what's harder for men who get raped and young boys is they think, I can't say this, I'm a man, I'm supposed to be a man. That bit comes into it.
The stigmas
that come into it, it's a lot hard. It will be a lot harder maybe to I can only speak from a man's point of view. If that had happened to me, I'll be like, shit. Like, well, no, I can't tell people like this, because people are going to think I'm not a man, or whatever it is, or whatever goes through your head. I can only imagine, and I can't say for definite, but it happens everywhere, man. But like, just in terms of this, I wanted to give a bit of context of the Hindu and Sikh part of societies. And I'll give you an example of what my mum's told me. And I know, and my mum used to tell me for years, she's like, you will be shocked, the people in our family who have done certain things. And we're like, okay. And that's why I was like, yeah, I can't believe I've done it, you lot. And then I sit, when you sit there, even now, like 20 years later, I'll go to a wedding. Now, 30 years after I've learned that. And I see that person, I'm like, hey, how you doing? And shaking my hand. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That kind of thing. But I know who you are. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So, but then it's hard. I can't smack him in the face, because as much as I want to, I'm just going to get called a liar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the person that it happened to never ever spoke out.
Yeah.
The same with the girls in school. You could tell me what happened. I could go batter them. Me and the boys can go batter them. But if you're not going to speak out, do you get me?
Yeah.
It's a sticky one. And it's hard sitting there listening to someone, especially, I feel like most of the girls I grew up around were Asian anyway. Yeah, it wasn't like we didn't know white and black girls, but most of them were Asian. So it was hard, because you're like, shit, man, like, what do you do here, kind of thing. Tough to hear, man. Because your instant reaction as a male is you want to protect. Well, for me anyway, is to protect. Yeah. You want to protect that girl, yeah. And it's like, how do you do that? She's confiding in you because she's just offloading, but she's not. Fucked, isn't it? But anyway, look, let's move on, because we're going to get onto the man now. Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, that was deep.
Mohammed beheaded 600 people in one day. Is he a good guy? Yeah? He married a 6-year-old and he shagged her when she was 9. Is he a good guy? Black Lives Matter as an organisation has got nothing to do with black people. It's created to cause division, and it happens every time there's an election in the United States. They come to prominence. I look at Gareth Southgate's football team, and you're all getting on your knees, and you're going to take our football club out and play in Qatar, are you? Where 6,000 people have died building those stadiums. There's still slavery now, yeah? And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to wear your rainbow armband in Qatar? No, you're not.
You talk about Muslim extremism, as you should, but you don't mention...
There's no groups of EDL or groups of the far right picking up young Muslim girls and raping them. It's not happening.
Well, Tommy, that last clip aged well, didn't it? That there's no one in the EDL committing child abuse.
Yeah.
You know, those articles we read at the beginning, there was plenty of them. And the worst thing about it is he's never come out and condemned them.
Of course he's not.
You know, who's formed part of his group. that's a kick in the teeth that you had people within your organisation who were campaigning against these grooming gangs committing the same and similar crimes as the ones that you were campaigning against. That's got to be a serious kick in the teeth for you, though. And the fact that he's never come out and condemned them is why I always say there's a biased viewpoint from Tommy, because you can't come out and say, hold my hand up, wasn't aware of it, but I'm disgusted at the fact that we had individuals within our group who were actually participating in that kind of activity as well, that we were campaigning against. It's disgusting, and I condemned them, and I'm glad they're in prison, and I hope they rot in prison. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. He's not even done that.
Yeah, it's hard for a guy to go back on his word, isn't it? But he has to. He should. Yeah. He should condemn them, and that will give him a bit more character.
And say, well, at least Tommy's like coming out and talking about it and saying, you know what? Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't aware of it, but and of course I wasn't aware of it. But you know what? It's disgusting.
It's wrong.
And they're in prison. Good riddance. Do you know what I mean? They got what they deserved. He's not even done that. And that's where people turn around and say, well, see, he's not even condemning the ones that he didn't know about. He's not even coming out and condemning it. So therefore, there's a bias he has, a prejudice. He doesn't help his own cause. That's what I was going to say. I don't know what you thought, but...
Yeah, I mean, if you're silent to the oppression, then you're part of the oppression in a sense.
Yeah.
If you know about it. But it was interesting what he said at the beginning about, for example, the football team, and it is a bit of in the BLM and how it is bullshit though what they're doing.
We'll cover a little bit BLM in as well, because he did say good. He did say, he says in this, I'm not going to give it away. We'll watch it, but he says truths about BLM, but also I think there's regrets as well. So, and he did say, I have not clipped that, and I don't think I've clipped it, but I'm just going to put it out there. He did say he regretted, when he got asked if there was anything he regretted, there was two things. One thing I think he says about BLM, because he lost a lot of black friends over that, who he grew up with. But it is what it is. If it happens, isn't it? That's what happens when you take a stance, right? And you're speaking truths. And in that case, he was speaking truths, because we've touched on it before ourselves about BLM. But also he was saying that, the 7/7 attacks when they happened here in London, he turned around and said, and he would put it out to the whole Islamic community and said, if there are any more attacks, you will feel the full weight of the EDL. And he goes, I do regret that. Now, at hindsight, he goes, I do regret saying that, because they weren't all to blame for that situation. So shout out, there were some things he took back and regretted and apologized for. Funny enough, this podcast episode, which is by the Central Club, is no longer up on the Central Club's channel. I luckily found on YouTube another channel or another geezer out there who obviously liked the episode and downloaded it or screen recorded it and then put it up. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting this content. And it makes me wonder why Central Club took it down. But it is the one that I like the most, because I think he's being the realist in this one. So I've taken some clips, not all of it. It is a long podcast episode. We can't break it all down, but maybe I'll put it in the description of the video. If you guys want to go and watch it yourself, the whole episode you can do, yeah? But yeah, look, let's move on to another clip where Tommy's now talking in more detail about things, because we want to give him a fair shout as well. I don't want to be I don't want this coming off that you and I are being biased.
Well, there's the thing with Tommy, like as I said at the beginning of the podcast, he does say some truthful stuff and some real issues, like you mentioned about the World Cup in Qatar and how it's a bit fake that you're going to be talking about LGBT and BLM and taking a knee, but when you go over to Qatar where slavery is still happening and they're very much, I'm not going to say homophobic, but it's not something that should be advertised, to then go to their country and then submit to their rules. Yeah. And it's like, which side are you on? Are you trying to say that in your own country you should wave the flag and, express that? And then when you go to play a football tournament
in Qatar,
you're just going to submit.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you really believe what you're believing in? And, when he talks about these issues, can't deny that he's speaking facts. Yes. But look, that we've established as well that,
and really, if at the same time you think FIFA and organisations like these sporting organisations and stuff like that would be putting pressure on the Middle East and Islamic states and saying, no, we're not going to do an events in your thing because you're anti-LGBTQ, no? Yeah. Really, when you think about it, But of course, it comes down to money, innit? Qatar's going to throw a lot of money their way.
But it's crazy because I think they banned Russia from competing.
And no one was calling it out as well. I don't think the LGBTQ community were even calling it out that, oh, why aren't you not wearing the rainbow bands in Qatar? Why not? No one was calling it out. Yeah. Why? But you call it out here in your West. In the West, you call it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which tells me sorry to say, but your cause is bullshit then. Because if you should be applying it to everything then. But and like I said, there are truths to what Tommy says. So that's why I kind of want to give him a fair shout as much as possibly can.
Yeah.
And like I said, I can't play the whole podcast to you, but you guys should go and watch it. It's a good one.
Yeah.
But let's play a clip anyway, and let's just start and we'll work through all these clips, yeah?
So I was outside the court and there were 30 men on trial and they've been raping children for a generation. They've been raping all these young girls, torturing them. And what the courts do now is they put reporting restrictions on these trials. So no one's allowed to talk about them. Yeah. So then at the end of the trial, you get one day's news on what's happened to these girls. You want to get the in-depth, and I know the in-depth because I read every one of the trials, of what they've said to them, whether they've been called gullah, whether they've been called dirty white bitches. It's all racial. The horrific crimes, some of the victims have had their tongues nailed to tables. One girl, they heated up an iron rod with a letter M on it because she was the property of Mohammed, and they scolded her bum. She was his property. These are the details people need to hear, in my opinion. So as the men were walking into court, I went outside court, I made it very clear, yeah? I've got mates I've grown up with who are Muslim who would punch these lads' heads in over what they've done, yeah? I'm not saying this is every Muslim doing this crime. What I am saying is that Muslims make up 4 or 5% of the UK. Muslim men make up 2% of the UK. They're responsible for 90% of the convictions in this group gang rape convictions. 90% from 4 or 5% of the population. 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. There's a problem.
Interested to hear your views on this, because the way you analyse things sometimes, I always like the way you break it down and you see it from maybe a different viewpoint that I'm not. Mm-hmm. What did you think of that?
Well, this is what I feel the lady was talking about on, was it GBN News? What she was trying to say in terms of the grooming gangs and the horrific stuff they're doing is different to your general cases of molestation and abuse that's happening on an individual case. And in a way, because it is different to the extremes, it should be treated differently, and we can't just lump it and say, oh yeah, but 85% are white. But like what Tommy just said there, if they're only making up 4 or 5% of the population, proportionally,
I think he said, what was it, 90% of the grooming gang situations have coming out of that.
With these extreme cases is 90%, and they only represent 4 to 5% of the whole population. Proportionally, though, that is massive. And is that a fact that we should ignore?
No, like I said earlier, I don't think we should ignore it.
But then we can't lump in the 85%.
No. But what I was saying is that you shouldn't say things like that, because the individuals that are out there. Remember what I said? The individuals out there, and then the individuals that are still suffering out there is that going to encourage them to come out and talk? Well, they're going to say, well, you guys really don't care about me, the individual victim. They're already feeling like that. Now they're going to feel like that potentially even more. So they're not going to come out. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying you shouldn't focus in on the grooming gangs and say that, that's really extreme what's going on over there. What I'm saying is that we should be careful how we're potentially isolating the individual people that are suffering right now or have done in the past even more than they are. So do you get what I mean? You're putting them in a position like, okay, so already they're feeling like, I can't talk about this. Who do I talk to about this? How do I come out about this? Etc. etc. Some people don't come out until 30, 40 years later, for crying out loud. Yeah, that's a long time to be suffering with something like that, right? And if we want them to feel more comfortable about coming out and saying, yes, I am being abused right now, and they're hearing this sort of narrative, how are they taking it?
But I don't think that they're two different, like they should be one or the other. I mean, what he's talking about is the extreme cases where people are getting their their tongues nailed and being branded with hot irons, and and what the woman was saying about extreme cases of even after death, where I was thinking like
I'm not saying ignore it at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying go after it, but I'm saying be careful what you're talking about when it comes to those 85%. Not just the 85%. I'm tired of using that. Yeah, I'm talking about individual cases, whether it be 85% white men doing it, whether it be 5% black people doing it, whether the other 20% or whatever it is doing being done by other Asian men on a singular level, yeah, don't isolate them like that. Don't make it the way you're saying it. The way she came off was like, forget that. We're not worried about that right now. We know it goes on. Who cares? Is that how the individual is taking it? Is that what you're saying? That forget about me. Who cares about me? And my pain and my torture and my suffering? Do you get what I'm trying to say? That's the bit I'm saying. How are you conveying your message is important. It's not, oh, don't forget that. She was dismissive of it. That's what it is. She was being dismissive of it, the GBN. That's the feeling I got. You're being dismissive right now. No, what you say, yeah, we need to go after him. She should have ranted about that as well, but then say, but this cannot be ignored as well anymore. This is sick what they're doing. It's extreme what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? It's how you convey the message. And she didn't convey the message like that. She just like, we know that happens. What is what I felt she was doing, because she wanted everyone to focus in on this one thing. And I get it. It is important. We need to focus on this one thing, but don't neglect the ones on the other side that are going through it as well. Because they are going through a form of torture themselves, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
But does it matter that a small percentage of the population are committing most of the crime? Should that be a factor to take into consideration when looking at this topic?
What do you mean? In what sense?
That 4 to 5% of the population, if he's saying that the Islamic community is 4 to 5% of the population, but they're committing 90% of
that type of crime,
this extreme crime, should that...
Home Office says otherwise, though. So who do we believe?
What does Home Office say?
Home Office says I read it earlier on, which is most of grooming gangs in the country are white.
Even there's extreme cases of grooming gangs.
I don't know extreme, but I've read some of the articles to you of what the Glasgow one, whoever it was. I could bring it up again as well if I could. Oh, I can. What does it say about Glasgow one? Just give me a sec. So I've got the screenshot.
Because I guess that is the issue where, if Tommy's statistics are wrong, then then it's wrong.
So the Glasgow one is in what the NSPCC called one of the worst cases in recent decades. The trial was told primary school age children were piled with alcohol and cocaine while being subjected to a campaign of sexual depravity, including group rapes at various properties.
So it's basically the same thing what these groups are doing.
You can imagine, right? Okay, all right. Whatever's happening in those, because remember, there's no care for these people about the kids. So if someone comes on and say, "Look, I want to do this to this kid," yeah, go on then. Might even charge them more for it.
Yeah, it's all game.
Yeah, it's all game. I don't care. So once they're done, we just throw them away, right?
Yeah.
So to say that within the white gangs, grooming gangs that we're talking about here as well, it's not happening. That form of torture is not happening. Is that what you're telling me? The Home Office is telling you, actually. So he's saying that 90% is being done by the Muslim or the Pakistani gangs or whatever they are, right? But the Home Office is saying, well, most of the grooming gangs in this country are actually white. So it's like, who do you believe in this one?
I think that's the hard bit now, because obviously if you're getting conflicting statistics.
And that's the other bit as well. Who do you believe, right? And this is what I said, like with going back to that GBN reporter, I just felt like she was being dismissive of the singular. I'm not saying that she wasn't right in what she was saying in terms of go after these grooming gangs. Of course, yeah, it's extreme. It's that's crazy. Like Tommy's just giving us a description of some of the stuff, and absolutely we need to nail these guys and get them. Yeah, right. But what I'm saying is, don't start isolating and dismissing the guys over her head, because that happens way too much. We need to highlight all of it.
Yeah, harm is harm, isn't it?
Yeah, and encourage all of them to come forward, regardless of whether you're a grooming gang victim or whether you're a singularity issue where it's one predator torturing you and harming you. Yeah, let's not start putting people in a position where they're feeling like, oh, I definitely can't talk about this because the country don't give a shit about me. That falls into that 85% or whatever. That's all I'm saying. It's dangerous how you're putting that. She was very dismissive. That's what I felt. She was very, very dismissive about that 85% figure. Don't do that. Yeah. Be as loud as you want, vocal as you want about the grooming gang situation, the Pakistani grooming gang situation, right? But be loud about that too, because it is a concern as well, and it needs to be dealt with. There's probably a lot of white paedophiles out there who've never been caught. Jimmy Savile went his whole life. never got caught, and he was in the limelight.
No, it's true though. The 85%.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one, and I'm just saying, like, and I don't want people saying that I'm banging on about this 85%. I'm saying go after it all. Treat it all the same. Like I said, in this country, there is no excuse in terms of funding to go after them all.
That's true.
There is no excuse in this country. We're one of the richest countries in the world. Yeah, $3 billion a year going to Ukraine. Don't tell me the money isn't there. Don't tell me the infrastructure isn't there. It's there. Yeah, but we're going to get to that a little bit more because we've got a Scotland Yard detective clip to watch a little bit later on. And that will open your eyes up as well on things. Yeah, let's move on to the next clip. Yeah.
Now, this goes into the murder of Becky Watson. This is about, she was 13 years old. She was raped from the age of 10. She was killed at 13. The man got 15 months in prison. He come out of prison and we interviewed the other girl. When he comes out of jail, he carries on raping the other girl. Yeah. But the point is that 15 years, 20 years later, that girl has gone to kill herself. Yeah. And I see that. So I've met so many of them. And I see the destruction in their lives from these crimes committed decades later. They're destroyed. They are all so damaged, yeah? And the damage done to them, not just them, I look at the consequence of then their children. I look at the consequence of their families, yeah? It's destroyed. They have absolutely destroyed them, yeah? And they're all just swanning around the town in their sports cars. And it angers me. And I get, whether it's be passionate anger, and then the corruption of the government, the cover-up that's gone on, the little token gesture of, in the Telford investigation, the police identified over 200 men, charged 11. What about the other 189 rapists? What about them? What, they're not getting done. They're not going to get done. This man here, Ahmed Nawaz, who murdered Becky Watson, he got 15 months in jail. I've got 3 girls. I've got 3 girls that are talking to me that he has anally raped, tortured. They took them up to the woods. They took them out to the woods and they weren't allowed to go home until they'd done everything they wanted them to. They come in minibuses from Birmingham. They brought minibuses of men to haunted houses, yeah? To derelict houses. They brought minibuses of men who one by one queued up and raped these kids. And this one victim in my story identifies over 200 of them. I've got over 200 names. And that's where this, when we say it's a small problem, 200 men in Telford is over 20% of the male Muslim population between the ages of 16 and 70. That's a big problem. 20%.
It is clearly a problem there.
But that's every city.
But I'm going to say, like everyone else says it because it is something obvious. It's happening in every culture, Tom.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the vast majority, 90% of the paedophiles in this country will be weird scumbags.
Yeah.
Lone predatory paedophiles. This issue of gang rape. So every case I've looked at, yeah, like this case in Telford is a father and his 3 sons, all raping the girl together. Yeah? A dad.
That's weird.
Brothers.
Yo, that's just like when you hear that, things like that.
Proper fucked.
That's fucked up.
I see where you're coming from in terms of like you can't just dismiss. Like he says it. Yeah, there's.
But this is what I like about Tommy here. He didn't dismiss it. But I thought that woman dismissed it.
Yeah, she was really like, all right,
brush it aside. Whereas Tommy's like, no, that is a problem as well. But this is a problem too, which is what I'm saying. That it's all a problem, but this is a problem too. And that what he's just described there, fuck, bruv. Like seriously, mini buses of people, men. And then queuing up at haunted houses to do whatever to these girls, man. Like, it makes you sick, man. And this is
the justice system is fucked up because what he said at the beginning about how you can go to prison just for 15 months and then you're back out there, but the families are destroyed and
but this is what I said at the beginning.
Commit suicide because of the trauma.
The bit that pisses me off when you look at a lot of the other cases outside of these Pakistani grooming gangs or whatever you want to call them, these incidences, and you look outside of it, there's harsh sentencing going on, right? Okay. But with these guys, even if they are getting sentenced, like you said, it's 15 months. And then like you said, off record, out of 10 with good behaviour.
Good behaviour. And then you're back on the streets doing the same shit again. But like, there's not a rehabilitation process. It's just.
But you're sticking people in for expressing themselves on social media.
I mean, there was a stat that said like you're more likely you do get more time in prison as a drug dealer than you do as a pedophile. And a lot of people say, well, I'd rather have a drug dealer as my neighbor than a pedophile. But that's the criminal system. That's the justice system in this country.
I would. I'd rather have a drug dealer.
Yeah, I'd rather have a drug dealer.
Come on, wouldn't you?
As a neighbor than
I'd rather have a drug dealer.
Especially if you're...
Like, if you said you got a choice, I'm like, I'll tell a drug dealer, please. It's just, and this is the bit that pisses me off, is that the sentencing is crazy. Like, but the thing is, that's not even the case. Some of them are getting off. They're not even going to jail. That's a bit concerning as well. Like, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not brushing this under the rug or anything like that. It's a problem, and it needs to be dealt with. But this is where my argument is. Well, I'm glad Tommy addressed that 85% figure a lot better than that reporter did, or that journalist, whatever you want to call her, because she just like dismissed it. Whereas Tommy's like, no, it is a problem, but however, we've also got a problem here we need to deal with. And I like the way he did that, and that's how you should be doing it. Don't take your eye off what's going on here, but we need to put our eye on this as well now. This needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, because there is levels to it. Look, like I said, 90% of these lone old white weirdos, whatever, it happens, and it is a problem. But a minority of the population are creating extreme heinous crimes. And it needs to be dealt with, if you read the transcripts, or if you hear the stories from these people, what they're doing, taking them to the woods, minibus full of them.
Probably you're taking
primary school kids,
an iron, what's it? A cattle prodding iron,
and branding
them with an M
for Muhammad.
That's disgusting. Like, and this is why, and I said this to you off record, I have literally put every religious book on my Amazon book list. Yeah, and I want to buy each and every one of them and read through them, including the Quran and the Islamic scriptures. Because I read a verse the other day it was about women covering themselves up. I think it's Sunnah 30:59 or something like that. Yeah, because I was watching a video, where two Christians were critiquing this Imam and what he's saying, and this is I'm going to bring this up actually. Yeah, basically this Imam, who was doing this vlog, basically was contacted by a guy who'd raped and, I'm going to say, unalived his victim. Yeah. And he was then saying, I think it was something along the lines of, how do I get forgiveness from Allah for what I've done when the girl has not received any justice? And the Imam was citing that verse and saying it was about covering up, basically, for girls to cover up, right? Basically saying that dress modestly, it was a guidance to women, that there are men out there who have ill intentions, and if you dress modestly, in Islam we know what that means, which is wearing the burqa and all that sort of stuff. But I think it was advice for women all outside of Islam as well, which is dress a bit more modestly. Unfortunately, there are men out there who will look at you and look at it the wrong way, like I showed you about the India thing, right? And may take advantage of you. So for your own protection, just be smart about it.
Fuck, that has to get to that.
It is. And I don't think, and it is, I'm not saying women should have to do that and they should be free. We live in a world where that happens, right, as well. So basically, I'm just trying to get the crux of it, yeah? So basically, he's turned around and saying, he's trying to say, and that's what the verse is saying. It doesn't say in there, it's your fault if you're, when I read the actual sunnah, the actual verse, it doesn't say in there, actually, that it's the woman's fault if she doesn't dress modestly, if she doesn't cover up, and if she does, she deserves to be abused by the man.
Of course.
Yeah? It doesn't say that. It's just giving you guidance. And please protect yourself, yeah? Please keep yourself safe. Because there are men out there with ill intentions, yeah? Which is true, right? You can take that advice or take it or throw it away. It's up to you. That's all it is guidance. He then turns around and says to the guys, well, something along the lines, you have to ask yourself this question. And at the end of the verse, it says, Allah is merciful and Allah is forgiving, right? After this bit of guidance is given. He turns around and says that basically he interprets it this way. Well, I told the guy, you have to think, how was she dressed? And if she was dressed inappropriately, then whose fault is it? I was like, mate, that is not what the verse says. It's just giving you advice to dress modestly for your own protection, yes, but it's not saying you're at fault if that happens to you. It's actually very much blaming the men, because there's people out there with ill intentions, so beware of them. Yeah, and protect yourself as best as you can, right? But he tries to make it out like it's saying that, well, basically, it says it's the woman's fault, and Allah will forgive you because He's merciful. Like, I was like, yo, your interpretation of this, and you're an imam, I'm a non-Muslim reading it, and I'm telling you it doesn't say that.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I did read, I was wondering, like, what is the purpose of the burqa? And obviously, in modesty and about being, keeping holy and pure for your mans and whatnot. But I did read it on Reddit. Someone replied that actually the burqa was introduced as an anti-rape technique because, we're talking about the desert lands back in the Middle East, where the men do have this animalistic ill intent, and the burqa was brought in as an anti-rape, basically, because obviously if you can't see anything underneath that, then your eyes won't mislead you.
And the thing is, I think it says in the Quran, or one of the scriptures as well, it says, turn your gaze.
Yeah,
so
lower your gaze.
Lower your gaze. So when you see a woman, lower your gaze, don't look. Yeah, so that's coming out of Islamic scripture as well. So it's also telling you as a man.
That's the thing.
It's telling you as a man, control yourself.
Yeah, I do think about that quote, because it is true. Even just looking, even in the Bible it says that, just to even look at your neighbor's wife is adultery. You know, even if you don't even talk to them or approach them or anything, just the thought is a sin, and you should lower your gaze, in what the Islamic world would say. And I do agree with that, in terms of, because just the thought of objectifying these women is wrong.
Mm-hmm. But you think about it as well, right? Okay, if you go back, not very long, you go back in the days, I remember, you go back in this country, women used to cover themselves up a similar way.
Right, I saw that, innit? Up in Yorkshire, and they're wearing headscarves
they wear headscarves and everything like that, cover themselves up. It's like, I'm not saying women have to do that, and I get it, because we're going to get the feminists on here, yeah? Who are going to turn around and say, well, we shouldn't have to do that, we should be free to do what... Yeah, ideally, in the ideal world, we would love for you ladies to live in that world where nothing ever happens to you. We wish we could guarantee your protection. And you can wear what you want, wear as short a skirt as you want, as low as a top as you want. We would love to live in that world. We're not saying that. But unfortunately, ladies, we don't live in that world. And there are men from all backgrounds who have ill intent. And that's all the Quran is telling you is, here's a bit of advice for you from us, from a religious point of view. Please try and dress a bit more modestly, because there are men out there who are going to have ill intent, right? But also the advice for the men is lower your gaze. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Control yourself.
I saw a video where it was like this. There's a couple,
and like you said, it says it in the Holy Bible as well.
Yeah,
so
every script, what Jesus said, like, it's committing adultery just to even look at your neighbor's wife.
Yeah.
But I saw a video of a couple, and she was going out on a girls' night out, and she was dressed, I'm going to quote, inappropriately.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, you're not going out in that. And she is obviously defending. He's like, no, why? Why can't I go out like this? I'm a woman. I can do I can wear what I want.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything. I'm faithful. And he says, look, it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt your faithfulness, and I don't have any problem with what you're going to do. But I know men.
Yeah.
And I know that there is going to be some wrong men that will take you in the club differently because you're wearing that.
I'll tell you this, another story, right? So one of my ex-girlfriends, she told me this story, right? She went to a club once, yeah, with her friends. Some guy got chatting with her. She drank her drink, yeah, and suddenly she didn't know where she was. So he clearly spiked her drink. Yeah. Another man witnessed what was going on, or he didn't witness him putting it in the drink, but he witnessed that she was a little bit, and he's now getting like, he's like, no, it's ain't right. Luckily he was there, this other guy. He got rid of that guy and goes, piss off, basically. Took my ex-girlfriend, this is before we started seeing each other, and took her home and put her in her bed and left. Yeah. So this is what we're talking about. Yeah. Not every man. There's two examples of a real man who's there going to protect a lady and protect a woman, and then you've got the creeps, the pricks out there who are going to take advantage of you. And that's the advice what the Quran is giving you. It's not trying to oppress you. And this is what I feel like. You know what I feel like? I feel like even within the Islamic community, even within the Islamic countries, a lot of people are misinterpreting,
of course, the
Quran and its teachings. And because they're going around and misinterpreting and saying it's my right to do this, the Quran tells me I can do this. The Quran doesn't tell you can do this. From the little few verses I've read already, it doesn't tell you that, but you're twisting it to suit your narrative to allow you to go and do it because you're a sick individual.
So it's interesting that we can agree now that in the Bible and in the Quran it will say this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more of just guidebooks on how to live a peaceful life.
Yep.
And how to live a life in accordance with God or Allah.
Mm.
But there is another book, which I don't know if we can talk about.
Which one?
The Talmud.
Oh, brother, I don't think we should now go into it.
All right.
Because YouTube will shut us down.
Okay, because that book
and guys, it's not
actually has some shit in there that says it.
We'll do an episode of that one. Yeah, because I do want to talk about that one. We'll do an episode of that one, but it will be a Rumble episode. We can't put that on YouTube, bro. I've got to stop you right there.
All right.
Because I know you can't control yourself, and every time we get pulled out, it's because it's something you said.
That's true,
in one of our episodes. Yeah, because Treble has a habit of losing, forgetting where all the platforms that we're going to start using. And
religious text.
I got to stop you there. I can't let you do that one because we're just going to this might even get pulled down for we know just based on what we're talking about. Yeah, like if we throw that in, that is it. We are done. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about it. But don't worry, Mohammed Hijab later on is going to talk about it.
Okay.
All right. He's going to talk about a few things as well. Right. When you're talking about, they're going to address that.
Okay.
Yeah? All right. In a very subtle way. Yeah. To convey what you're thinking and I'm thinking right now.
That's an important one because that actually, once you understand that side, that religious text, and then who we've already established as being funding all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's all part of the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand that. So the problem is, you know what? The masses don't understand what we understand. And that's the bit, how it all really works and who's really pulling the strings. And we always encourage you guys, do your research. Don't just label things as conspiracy theory. Really research it yourself. Don't be lazy. And this is the problem. We live in a generation in an era where people are just lazy. Yeah, and it's really funny, yeah. I can't remember, is it Mohammed Hijab's going to talk about it? Someone talked about it. I can't remember who said it. But it says in the religious books that as we go on as a human race, we're going to become stupider.
Yeah.
Which when you look at it, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be the smartest and most intelligent generation of the human race, and yet we're the dumbest and most stupid.
For sure.
Yeah, and that's not me trying to insult people. It's like if you're not going out there and doing your own research into these things and really looking deep, who runs the world and how it operates, and what are the game plans here that are being played, yeah, then I think you're missing a massive part of the picture.
The current state of the human race is that we have the capacity to be the smartest. And I think you will get these outliers of people who have gone and met those expectations of their capacity to be smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the general population,
the masses I'm talking about.
The masses is probably the dumbest it's ever been. But every individual does have the capacity to gain knowledge and be comfortable.
Yeah, they do. That's why I said go out there and do it. But like people are just lazy. They rather binge watch their favorite series on Netflix and when it comes to this subject, I'll just watch some clips on Tommy and not really listen to all of Tommy, yeah? And like I said, part of me actually likes Tommy, but then I know who funds him and I'm like, is that Donald Trump? I said to you, we've had your viewpoint's probably changed a little bit on Trump. I could tell, unlike our pal that we had on here last time, he's probably full on Trump, yeah?
We've got to get him back.
We've got to get him back, right? But my point being is I like Trump. I look at Trump, yeah, and I look even like people like Tommy Robinson,
I want to believe.
And I think I can sit with you and have a pint And we could have a healthy conversation about anything. We could have a laugh and a joke, but we could also have a healthy conversation about this without it getting emotional, right? Okay. But then when I look at who's funding you, we showed the pictures earlier on and we've said what we said about Tommy, and I still stand by it. That's the bit that says to me, I can't trust you, mate, with what you're putting out there. So, but anyway, let's move on to the next clip.
Yeah.
But like we said, what we just heard was absolutely disgusting, horrific, and absolutely needs to be re-looked at again. We cannot just say, oh, we're just going to, again, we did an inquiry, it's all done, that's it. No, there's victims out there who have not received justice yet, and they need to receive justice.
And it's great that you're tackling that, and that's amazing. One thing other people would say as well is, and myself definitely, why weren't you targeting these grooming gangs when you first started the EDL? It would look like you was targeting them in one way back then, and now you're just moving on to something else.
No, so if you actually
it's
if you watched my Oxford Union speech,
I have. Yeah.
In that Oxford Union speech, I bring up a leaflet from 2004. I didn't start activism until 2009. In that leaflet, where I organised a protest in Luton Town Centre called "Ban the Luton Taliban" when I was about 20. I organised a protest, and in that leaflet I say our daughters are being targeted. They're being hooked on drugs, by paedophile drug gangs.
So it's something you kind of identified?
I identified it in 2004, My cousin was a victim in Luton of these gangs, She was abused, raped. No one's seen her now for decades. She's probably got 8 kids, I think, wearing a burqa, So, but she was a victim of these gangs at the age of 14, and when the family were going to the police trying to do something, they just say she's a drug addict. Now, she's a child. She climbed back out the window to get back to them for a fix as a kid, But none of them face prosecution. No one gets done, and we now know why. We've seen it across the whole country. So a lot of people, I do get a lot of people saying, "Well, you only tackled how come you're only tackling the brown ones, or the Muslim ones?" I say because they're the ones that have been allowed to do this. Actually, not just them, because the Jimmy Savile and all the elite paedophiles are allowed to do it as well. But this group and this clique of Muslims in every town in the city, because they operate like a mafia across the country of raping, they've been facilitated and accommodated by the police and social services. You saw the report last week in Oldham, where the girl went into the police station begging for help, and they refused to help her. And the men come in the police station in front of the police and took her back out. They all went and raped her, 6 of them. Like these things that sound unbelievable. When we were saying them in 2009, when we started the English Defence League, we were called hate preachers and you're lying. And then the Rotherham report come out. And I remember when the Rotherham report come out, I was in HMP Winchester. And I remember seeing it all burst on the news. And then that was the start of...
Do you think if this come out, someone less controversial than yourself was highlighting this, then there would be more done?
Yeah, I wish it was. And I wish someone did.
Okay, Tommy, this is why people don't take you seriously. When you say things like no one's seen her in decades, she's probably got 8 kids wearing a burqa. Yeah, you need to work on your deliverance, mate, if you want to get people on side. Yeah, right. Because I actually heard someone talk about it earlier, right? That someone like what's his name? Something Murray. I forgot his name now. God, he's talking the same stuff as Tommy Robinson is. I forgot his name now. His last name's Murray. Shit. First name.
Quite a few Murrays.
But he's quite vocal. He's quite posh and well-spoken and from the upper class. And
comedian?
No, he's like an intellectual or something like that. I don't know too much about it. But he comes from the world of the rich. Okay. Yeah. And when you listen to him, you've got to pay more attention because the way he's coming off, the way he's delivering it. With Tommy, when he talks like that, you're like, shut up, Tommy, you're just a racist. Yeah, and that's it. No one wants to talk about anything else then.
But is he speaking facts though? If he's saying you're a child and you've been influenced by a grooming gang that's feeding you drugs and you're literally going to climb through a window to get that fix when you're a child and 100%. You haven't seen them in a few decades and you know that they have Islamic beliefs.
No, I'm just saying.
Could she be wearing a burqa and have 8 kids?
I'm not saying that. It's the way he says it, like he's at the pub telling a joke. Yeah. And do you get what I mean? Yeah, and that's why people don't take Tommy. Some people don't take him seriously or aren't getting the message clearly because immediately, it's like, man, people look at me and go, look, see, that's why he's a racist, and the rest of everything, who cares? He's a racist. You switched your brain off. You're not listening anymore. Yeah, whereas you and I listened to that completely. We were like, what were we saying? We were like, that's fucked. Girl goes into a police station, asks for help. The guys go in there, grab her from the police station, take her away and rape her. And What are you doing? What are the police force around the country doing?
This is my issue with the whole.
Do you know
the biggest issue is the criminal justice system is flawed.
But you know what the biggest thing is? I saw a clip recently, yeah, right? I can't remember his name now, this guy, yeah. You'd know him well. He always talks about, he's British, and he always talks about, birth certificates and ownership of us and all that. The
straw man.
Yeah, straw man stuff. Tall guy. I don't know if you remember his name. You probably would. If you saw him, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know who that is. Yeah. But I remember him talking about it. He goes, the police force wasn't created to police us and keep us safe. The police force was created to keep the elites safe and the politicians safe, to protect them from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that if we start realizing truth and learning the truths, that we'll come together as one, as a mass, and go after them. That's why the police force is there.
I mean, it was interesting when
and when you look at these examples, and you look at the politicians and everything that's going on with them as well with regards to this, who are the police protecting?
Yeah,
because it ain't those girls.
I mean, they were running alongside Rishi Sunak's car, like. He's making police officers run alongside us. That's how much protection he needs, because, yeah, it's crazy as well. Because what is it, Venezuela or something, where the president can just walk down the streets and people love him and they'll just say hello.
Well, Gaddafi was like that. He could go driving in his car, get out and get hugs and kisses from everyone. They all loved him. Not a problem.
But in this country,
you need protection.
You need protection. What does that say?
Well, look at the US. He needs a bulletproof, bomb-proof limousine. The president. They have a motorcade.
Yeah.
Front and back. They have snipers everywhere.
The whole,
they have air support, everything.
Everything
what does that tell you?
Shut down.
So, but not going away from what Tommy was saying, is, mate, that's just even worse, that the police don't do anything about it. They're not doing anything. They're ignoring it. But that story that he just gave about, it was Oldham, I think he said it was, wasn't it? Where the girl goes in to get help from the police officers and they go in, snatch her up, and like, what, you didn't stop them? So where are you going? Do you know what I mean? Or arrest them, or what's going on here? You didn't protect the girl. And then even he was talking about his cousin who went to a police station for help, and they turned around and said, well, she's just a junkie. Well, she's a kid. And he's right. She is just a kid. But she's a junkie. Who cares? She's lower class. And that's the other thing as well. These are all lower class girls from the poor and working class, which is always the case in all of the cases like this, child abuse cases, whether it be grooming gangs or the singular ones, they all come from
majority. Yeah, because it's easier to. They're not going to have that backing,
all that voice.
Yeah.
All right, next clip.
Yeah.
So yeah,
could you paint a bit of a picture for the people who are watching who may not have watched the Oxford Union? Just kind of what your upbringing was like in Luton.
So my mum was Irish. Luton is an immigrant town, really. Yeah, white English or minority. My mum was one of 8 come here as the Irish community. No blacks, no dogs, no Irish when they come to Luton. Yeah, Luton's football scene has always been diverse, multicultural. So racist elements, say like West Ham or the Millwalls, Luton was a big day out because half of Luton's football hooligans are black. Yeah, and Luton's always been like that. So Luton's always been that. And I always say, line all my friends up. Yeah? You love St. Lucian, Bulgarian, Italian, Jamaican. We're all the sons of immigrants. Yeah? And when it comes to multiculturalism, you had Angela Merkel. David Cameron chose a day to come out and say multiculturalism has failed. And it was a day that we had about 5 or 10,000 come into Luton for an EDL demo. Shit timing for him, yeah? Thick, yeah? But I think they were appeasing what was a growing menace probably for them on the streets, which was a mass movement of working class men who were hitting towns and cities in large numbers and screaming in anger about what was happening to their country and to their communities. Now, he said multiculturalism failed. Angela Merkel said multiculturalism failed. That is a weak, cowardice way of saying that Islam's failed. Because if you come to Luton, it hasn't failed, okay? It hasn't failed. It's like, you come into, and I'll explain it from when I went to school. You had the Muslim playground and the non-Muslim playground. On the non-Muslim playground, it's not all whites. Yeah? It's whites, blacks, Indians, Chinese, it's everyone. Yeah? But the Muslims stick together like that. And I never understood why. You go into school dinner table, I don't know what it's like when you went to school, you'd have everyone integrated and sitting together.
It was all mixed.
Yeah, but not in the corner. You'd have 10 tables of Pakistanis. They don't mix. Yeah? We haven't done that as kids. It's like oil and water. We didn't do that. Yeah. And I never understood it until I started dissecting the Quran. And I'll challenge anyone to do this. Pick up the Quran. Yeah, someone sent me, a Muslim outreach sent me it when I was first in jail, 2011. I was on 22 weeks on solitary confinement. Yeah?
Someone in the prison, like a...
No, Muslims from outside. You can send things in.
Oh, right, okay.
So they sent me in with a funny little letter saying, hey, Tommy, we thought it'd help you embrace Islam. And thank you guys, because I dissected your book. I had 22 weeks of nothing. So I just sat there and I opened it up, and every reference it made, whether it be to women, I've done different categories. Yeah? So take the reference, do not be friends with Christians or Jews, yeah? And just reference every verse that says it. I had pages. And then it just clicked. I thought, Jesus, man.
Are you religious?
No. But I thought, this is it. This is the reason. This is everything I've seen growing up. The Islamic ghetto, yeah? There ain't no black ghetto in Luton. There ain't, right? Whites and blacks are all comfortably integrated everywhere. How come there's this Islamic ghetto? And the Islamic ghetto and the non-integration, I'd say, comes from the Saudi money, from the Qatari money. It comes from the influence of Wahhabism. It comes from, so I had this deal when I was in jail when I was younger, when I was 21. And I was in jail with some lads from Biggleswade, which is a town. And they've got Muslim lads there in the towns, a few.
Where's that based?
Biggleswade, it's not far from Luton, yeah?
Okay.
But they're totally integrated. There's no mosque, yeah? They're not all in one area. There's no mosque, there's no influence. They're just cultural Muslims. I said, yeah, that's very different to when you've got, for example, the Luton main imam, Kadir Bask. Luton's main Islamic centre, mosque. This is what frustrated me for years. I grew up, my mate was a Muslim lad. When we were younger, we were driving through the town. He said, that's the one, bruv, that one there. I said, what? He goes, that's the terrorists. Yeah? And it was Luton Islamic Centre. So I knew that from within their youth, yeah. They said, that's the one, bruv. Trust me, they're the ones, yeah. Then I see, when we started the English Defence League, they set up a Luton in Harmony programme about how their town's in harmony, yeah, which it's not.
Who did? The Muslims
council,
or the
no,
council?
the council. And one of the lead seats on this Luton in Harmony programme was a gentleman called Kadir Bask, who's the imam from Luton Islamic Centre. So I knew from day dot he's a wrong one, yeah, from my mates telling me. And then I thought, right, I investigated that mosque. I investigated everything about them. I found that they were... So the Stockholm bomber who blew himself up in Stockholm, he come to Luton as an innocent Muslim, went to university. He was radicalised by Al-Mujahideen, who are now a prescribed terrorist organisation. But they weren't until the English Defence League was formed. They were given free rein to recruit in this country. They were sending people out to fight for the Taliban, sending people to fight against our country. They were in the newspaper bragging about it. No one batted an eyelid. When the English Defence League formed, we challenged them. Yeah? They then got prescribed, okay, because of the tensions it was causing. But they were a terrorist organisation. So he went out to Stockholm and blew himself up. But he come to Luton as an innocent Muslim from Sweden. He was radicalised, converted at the Islamic Centre, at the Luton Islamic Centre. The Westminster Bridge attack, Khalid Masood, that one? And he worked at that mosque. Yeah? Everything comes back to this mosque. Now, I left the English Defence League 2015. I'm sat in a room like this in BBC's local radio in Luton Town Centre. And no, Kadir was sat on, and someone rang me and said, Kadir Bash is being interviewed about you leaving the English Defence League. He's on BBC in Luton. So I went walking in. So I just walked in and they're sat there. And the bloke says, well, Tommy Robinson does live in Luton. He's just walked in. I said, yeah, of course I walked in. Let me sit down and talk to you. Because I'm the extremist. Remember? Everyone calls me the extremist, yeah? So I sat down and I said, Kadir, let me just ask you a couple of questions. I just want to ask you a few questions, yeah? I'll answer your questions, you answer mine. And he says, okay. I says, in your ideal society, what would the punishment be for homosexuals? And he just looks, and you can watch this video. I said, would there be a punishment? He says, yes. I said, okay. Because you have to ask the right question in your ideal society. He goes, what he tried to get around was, he goes, no, there'll be no punishment in Britain. Yeah, there's no punishment in Britain. This is British. I said, no, I don't want to know about Britain. I want to know about your ideal society. What you, in your ideal society, would be.
Yeah.
Yes, homosexuals will be executed. Oh, but you're head of Luton in Harmony. How can you have harmony when you kill the gays, bruv? How can you have harmony? I'm the extremist, yeah, because I don't want people wearing a niqab, apparently. That makes me a massive extremist. But you're part of Luton in Harmony. You're a nice, moderate voice. And you want to kill gay people? And you know, from this interview, Ofsted raided the school. Because he had a school as part of his mosque. It was all over the news, yeah? Ofsted raided the school. They found books in the school library telling them to stone women, telling them to cut hands and feet off. In their books, in the kids' books, yeah? The school was shut down. And I'd battled for years, and I'm sitting there like, so this happened, and then I was challenging the council all the time, saying, how are you sitting around a table with this man? Yeah, he's a Nazi. Then the Nazis the millennium, yeah? He is a jihadist. Yeah, and you've got a seat at the table, and whilst you're all sitting at the table, we're out there, all the working class. And And Luton Council asked me for a meeting. This is when we hit off the English Defence League. I went for the meeting. They set up cameras like this. They had about 10 of them. And there was a baroness, a black baroness. And they said, we want to sit and ask you questions. Yeah. So tell us what your problem is. Because they knew we were resonating with people. I said, okay, I'll tell you the problem. Yeah. Farley Hill is the most run down, is one of the most deprived estates in this country. In Luton, yeah? One of the most deprived estates. It's a white estate, really, yeah? A white council estate. I said, the park is from 1960. Yeah? Well, trot down the road to the Islamic community, you've got a £350,000 state-of-the-art park. You've got you're a regeneration area, so your kids don't have to go to play football, play tennis, or do anything, yeah? We have got to pay a £5 each, yeah? You have neglected us, you've forgot us, you've abused us. I said, and I said, now I'm going to go through and ask you a couple of questions. All of you, where do you live? Yeah? St Albans. Where do you live? Hitchin. These are all nice areas.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you live? Yeah. And I got to Mohammed at the end, who's in there. I said, you live in Berry Park, don't you? He said, yeah. I said, you represent your community. None of you even know who we are. You don't even know what we're about. You're not from where we're from. You're not brought up where we're brought up. You don't get what we're talking about. You haven't seen the problems we see. So, and the problems we see are the problems of Islamic immigration and integration. And Luton went from when I was born in 1982 to one mosque. We've now got over 40. The culture change.
You said 30 on the Oxford.
That was Oxford. That was 2015.
So you're saying there's been another 10 since then?
Yeah, and at what point?
That's not bad.
It is a bad thing because what mosques are promoting. What mosques are promoting, and this is just the conversation, is like, is it a bad thing? Was Mohammed a good guy? Was he a good guy? And this is and I speak to Muslims and say, look, Mohammed beheaded 600 people in one day. Is he a good guy? Yeah. He married a 6-year-old and he shagged her when she was 9. Is he a good guy? He tortured a man and set fire to his stomach and took his gold off him, a bloke called Kanana. This is not according to Tommy Robinson. This is according to all Islamic scripture. Is he a good guy? Yeah. Is he the right guy for us to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 million people revering as a good guy? No, he's not. He's not. And that is an open discussion that we should...
Same in the Bible, though.
No, it's not. Jesus didn't behead anyone. He didn't kill anyone. He didn't rape anyone. Muhammad, it says 4 or 5 times in the Quran, outside of your 4 wives, take whatever your right arm possesses. The right arm is the arm of the sword. Yeah? It actually says, it gives law to taking non-Muslim women as sexual slaves. Now, are we all going to pretend that Rotherham isn't about men taking girls as sexual slaves? Rotherham, Telford, Rochdale, Manchester, Oldham, there's a report coming out on the 12th for this month that's going to expose the cover-up in Telford. It's coming out it's an independent inquiry that's been done by a solicitor's firm. It's going to be all the same headlines.
That boy's got no filter, man.
There's probably conversations like this that got me empathizing with him back in the day, because I kind of do feel that he is speaking genuinely about some real issues that he's seen the change happen over the years. And like you said, when you go up in front of the court system and the judges and the baronesses and whatever, they don't actually understand the problem. You know, they're living in posh areas in Hertfordshire. They don't have any connection to the real issues.
And that's like our politicians. They're putting all these things and stuff in places like taxes, blah 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 blah. But they're so disconnected with the working class and the poor that they don't realize what they're going through. So
they don't realize it. And you know, if he's saying that from his own experience and from what he's witnessing, Islam is the integration of immigrant Islam into his area is the root cause of the problems. I understand why he's passionately frustrated about the issue. Yeah, but I also have to, I have to put a caveat in there and say that, but it isn't as clear cut as Islam is the problem. As we've mentioned, there is this another demographic that is kind of pulling the strings.
But I also feel the interpretation of Islam, even from the imams and even from the Muslim people, the Muslim men, is incorrect. And he's talking about, he says that, like he just said there, it says in the Quran, take whatever your right arm can possess, take it, basically, yeah, outside of your wives. I'd have to read that whole verse to understand and interpret it myself, because I'm interested now to want to read that verse. What verse was that? Because how have you now interpreted that and now put it out there? Yeah, and it's like I said, don't just listen to what Tommy's saying. If you really want to know, go and read the Quran, read the Hadiths and clear your biases. That's the biggest problem. Take the bias out of it, take the emotion out and just read it and say, does it actually, and be honest, does it actually say that? And is that what it's trying to tell you? Because you can't on one hand have a religion that tells you turn your gaze or whatever it is from a woman, don't stare, and then advising women to moderately dress themselves because there's men out there who will take advantage of you, and then turn around and say, hey, on the flip side, they also tell you to go, and it's contradictory. But at the same time, I get where he's coming from. He's frustrated because he's seen the changes within his community. But again,
it's not
to
label them all, because I've got some Muslim brothers that are actually probably the most blessed guys, and they're really good human beings.
One of my best mates is a Muslim, right? He's not an active, he won't consider himself as a full-on Muslim. He doesn't practice it or anything like that. But he's never been taught that.
Yeah.
I've got other Muslim friends. They've never been taught that. Even if they haven't read most of them haven't even read their own Qurans. Yeah. Most Christians haven't read the Holy Bible. Yeah. So, but their parents still have not taught them anything like that.
Yeah.
So to say that that's the teachings, go learn for yourself is what I would say. Hello. Anything else you want to add to that one before we move on?
Oh no, I don't know. It's such a big call. I think, Tommy, you can have everybody should just listen to that video and have their open-minded opinion and base it on that.
Don't be closed.
But don't be closed. I would also say don't hate on Muslims either, because it's not as clear cut as that. Muslims are bad because Muhammad is bad. It's not that straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Muhammad was the right thing. And if you look at it from the biblical side, Jesus came along to say, don't worship false idols. This is one of the 10 commandments, even from Old Testament stuff. Thou shalt not worship false idols. So even, to worship Muhammad, which some of them do, because he's the prophet and he's almost their God in that sense. That's that's misinterpreting the message. Muhammad came to give a message, but that doesn't mean you should worship him.
No.
But a lot of the
I think a lot of it is very much you're supposed to respect him. Because he carried the word of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a God. He's not a Messiah or anything like that. He's just a prophet to give you. And he was chosen because he was illiterate and he couldn't write it down. And all of you had to memorize it. But then obviously later on it was written down because people did memorize it. But I honestly was I always say, do your own research, man. Look into yourself. Don't just take that's why I've got it on my list, my book list now, all of them. Because it's now time to now read it and understand it myself.
Yeah.
Because, and not go to someone for an interpretation. Actually read it yourself. How does that translate to you? And if you do genuinely see something in there that's, whatever he's trying to push right now, then cool. Yeah. But if you're seeing it and actually, to be honest, it doesn't really say that. I've not taken it that way. Maybe I need to study this some more. Maybe I need to now do my own research going forward. Because what Tommy's saying and what I'm reading, if you're going to go in there with a biased mind and read a book, if you're looking for the negatives and you're trying to look for things to use against the Muslim community, you're going to find them.
Yeah, it's confirmation bias, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're going to go and go, oh, well, yep, that sounds like this. Look what it means. I'm telling you what it means. Look, that's what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you already got that bias in your heart, then naturally you're going to translate everything in a biased mindset and say, see, evil. Yeah, if you're going in there looking for evil, like where's the evil that Tommy's talking to me about, you're going to find that. If you go in there with a clear mind and say, I'm not going to, this is my mind, take out all the bias, take out all the anger, the emotion and stuff like that, and actually just really study this for what it is and how does it translate to me, honestly. But that's hard to do as well.
Yeah.
When you've already made your mind up about something. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one.
If I was a young... You only get to see clips of me walking through town when people are aggressive. The vast majority of Muslims are very polite, very nice. I have some great conversations with them. We have some great debates. And they're like, Tommy, I'm annoyed. I have Muslim come to me, I'm annoyed about it. What can I do?
Yeah, there's got to be a way you can...
Yeah, and do you know what? I sit here now and I have my view on Islam. Yeah, and my view is an educated view on Islam, of studying what it is and who Muhammad was. That's not all Muslims. And now where we're at is I'm in a mad stage now because I'm looking at the biggest threat to this country and I'm seeing the communist Marxist world movement, which is growing, whether it be over the globalist elite, the attack on freedom, the force for I'm looking at all of this thinking, do you know who I think our biggest allies will be to fight this? It's the Muslim community. It's like I've said to loads. I said the elite want to take our freedom in the same way they want to take your freedom. Yeah, they want to shove their my kids' arms and say they want to shove their your kids' arms. The conspiracy of whatever you want to, people call it conspiracy, of the New World Order, of the Great Reset, of the financial breakdown, of everything that's happening now. Yeah, Muslims will be our allies. And I'd march with any Muslims to stop what's going on. Because I looked and I've seen the biggest threat to my hometown growing up in Luton. And then I sit and look at it and think, oh, we've been played. And we've been played. And maybe I played my role in that's totally benefited them. Because they have made us clash with each other. Yeah, they've brought Islamic immigration in. They've let them get away with crimes. They've played us all against each other. They want you to be, you're gay, you're straight, you're black, you're white, you're separated there, you're separated there.
Labels.
The labels, and they want us all warring with each other. And I've probably played a big role in that, in clashing. And then
talk about putting a contradictory
he's a funny guy, isn't he?
message out there. So on one hand, they're the enemy. They're not all bad. Now they're not all bad. And with what the elites are doing with their agenda, if I'm going to team up with a group, it'd be the Muslims. Because the Muslims will actually fight.
They're against that as well. So
and I've played a part in creating this divide. I wonder why that is. Because who are you funded by? He's a funny bloke, man. He makes me laugh. He's that Jack the Lad kind of guy. He makes me laugh.
The previous videos, he was going hard.
And
now he's like, yeah, but actually they're our biggest ally. And then secondly, and he admits, like, I played a big part in creating the division.
Yeah. So he just openly said, I've played a major part in creating that division as well, which
it's ironic, isn't it?
Tell me about it, mate. Like, and when I watched that clip, that part of the podcast, I was like, are you serious? And I thought, clip it. That needs to go out there because you're now contradicting everything you stand for and everything you just said in the previous clip.
But this is the thing, like, the start of the clip was exactly what we were just saying before. Like, Islam itself, it's not clear cut that Islam is bad or good. It's, there's some good people, genuinely good people that practice the religion and they have good beliefs from that religion. So Tommy was probably wrong with the extreme views that he was going with, but now he's corrected himself. I think,
Yo, and I keep telling you, man, this guy is bought and paid for, man.
Yeah.
And listen to what someone's telling you. Yeah, it's confessing without confessing outright. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're telling the truth. The truth will always come out, they say, right? And he's just revealed it. In my opinion.
On a sly way as well.
Like, do you know what I mean? And I would work with the Muslims to have that fight. Okay, that sounds like, without saying, that sounds like there are terrorist groups out there who are funded by, without saying, because YouTube might get us for this, but you know who they're funded by.
Yeah.
They're from, yeah. So, all right, next clip. Yeah.
They want to break that down, and Black Lives Matter, you know, you was on about regrets. That was another regret I had.
Go on.
Black Lives Matter blew up, didn't it? This is probably the most difficult period of my life when I come out against Black Lives Matter. And I actually looked and thought, geez, the Muslims take it pretty good. Because I've said a lot and I've battled against Islam for 10, 15 years. And then I started looking at it very differently because I thought, I see Muslims every day. Yeah? You only see a couple of instances where I get a punch in the nose. They're pretty cool with it, with my criticism. And I didn't used to think they was. But when I come out against Black Lives Matter, damn, it blew up for me. It was the moment. It was they had the George Floyd death and the passion and the emotion.
You've always screamed about not being racist.
Yeah.
Just, it's religious tension. It's not racial tension. So if you go against BLM, it's going to look like you are more of a racist.
It shouldn't. Because BLM as an organisation, most people, I said to my mates, because I fell out with a lot of my mates from school, I said, what, you think BLM just formed over George Floyd? Been going 10 years. Yeah? It created over a lie. And this is where BLM is part of the same, it's all the same movement, yeah? George Soros funded.
Antifa. And...
It's all the same. Okay, just rebranded. Very genius branding by Soros on BLM, because putting the word black in it means you can't criticise it, because most black people think you're talking about them. Very clever, yeah? Because it's the same, right? You go on their website, not my website, Black Lives Matter website from the United States, the organisation that everyone was marched under the banner of. It says we must destroy the concept of the nuclear family. You want to get rid of mums and dads. Now, in the 1960s, 80% of black children in the United States live with their mum and dad. Now it's 20%. What does that do? What does it do by breaking up the family? It brings poverty, it brings crime, it makes black children like 100 times more likely to end up in prison because they haven't got a father figure. Who fills the role of the father figure? The gangs, the rap gangs, the culture that's being bred. And actively, this is what they are calling for, Black Lives Matter. You should be calling for families. You should be encouraging families to stay together. You need a father figure in your life.
Yeah, the stats are shocking.
Insane stats of what happens when you don't have a father.
Single parents. No father.
And yet that's the goal of... So the two women who set up Black Lives Matter are both Marxists.
How is it any positivity in that?
For blacks? No,
I'm thinking of the slogan. Is that definitely on there, is it?
1,000,000%, yeah. The list, yeah. Promote LGBTQ plus narrative. What's that got to do with Black Lives? Yeah? The whole thing is about destroying the family. The targeting of the family, it is about keeping blacks at the bottom. Yeah, and that's what's happened. And the Democrats are the party that have done that. They don't want blacks succeeding. They don't want them to. They want them reliant on the state. This is about keeping an entire community, a vote base, who are reliant on the state, who don't see success, who don't see that they can be successful. They see that racism is to blame for everything, when it's not. Right? And what I said, so when I went on this rant, and it was how I delivered it, and it is the biggest regret, because it caused my children so much upset. Because the circles I move in are white and black. I at school was the white boy of all the black boys. Yeah? My son's the same now. Okay, so all his friends, my daughter's friends, and they're the kids I welcomed into I love them all. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but when I went on rant about Black Lives Matter, everyone, because of the way it was clipped, and rappers, and it went so viral, yeah, some funny videos, but which were mocking me, but it went viral because what I'd done is I watched the War Memorial get smashed up in London, and it was the Commonwealth War Memorial, and it was it was Black Lives Matter demonstration. They spray painted all over it, and then they attacked Churchill statue. So then I made a video saying, right, next Saturday, every football hooligan in the country's coming. You're not smashing up our war memorials. Yeah? And I said, our war memorials. Yeah? And then people took that.
Is this when it was all the statue taking of like the slave trade?
Yeah.
That type of stuff, was it?
It was at that time when everything was being smashed up, and they were talking about ripping down Churchill. And then they smashed up a war memorial, and they spray painted all over it. And I remember getting so wound up, and I walk out, and on the news is Black Lives Matter. And this is the truth, yeah? And I'm ready to lose it, yeah? Because I'm thinking I'm now on a hate crime, a homophobic hate crime, and a man's got a broken leg, and the evidence I had that he spat in my face, and the evidence that I didn't go over the top on him, and I didn't say he's non-binary, it's all gone. It's deleted, and that's when. And then I went on a rant about Black Lives Matter, and I went and the way I addressed it, and not what I said, because what I said was true, but that's that moment. And then and I actually managed. Then I took it to a forensic recovery place, and I got the footage, and then it proved what he said was a lie, and I didn't get charged on that. But at that time, that's when I went on a rant about Black Lives Matter, and once I'd done it, it just went bigger and bigger each day, and then we had the demonstration where all the lads were going to protect the war memorials, and then I absolutely shit myself. Yeah. Because I thought someone's going to get killed in London, and it's on my head. And it's on my head. And at that point, it looked like I was against blacks because talking about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter as an organisation has got nothing to do with black people. Yeah? It's not benefiting black people. It's not created to benefit black people. It's created to cause division, and it happens every time there's an election in the United States. They come to prominence every time because they want the blacks angry, they want them upset, and they want them voting Democrat. They don't want them succeeding. Some people say about plantations. I say, you're still on plantations. You're on the Democrats' plantations. You're still stuck down the bottom, and they're breaking your family, and they're Planned Parenthood, and everything they're doing to you. They don't want you to be educated. They don't want you succeeding. And and that was Black Lives Matter. And then I can't help myself. So I fell out with some of my best friends that I've been friends with since this big over that. And I go in my group chat. We're all in a school group chat, and I am bitter about it. I go in there, and I continually just drop things in there. Because I was proven, I feel I've been proven right. Because a year later, was it Kieran Dyer? Black footballers started coming out against Black Lives Matter. Yeah, because they see what They see what it was. And I get wound up about, I think that getting on the knees at an England game, yeah, and then the whole stadium is booing, well, you haven't done any good, yeah? You've already got to kick it out. You've already got to stand up. What is getting on your knee? What is getting on your knees? It's a symbol of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter as an organisation is a Marxist organisation, yeah? Anyone who researches what that organisation is against it. But the symbol, so I had my mate saying, yeah, but I just agree with the sentiment of Black Lives Matter. I said, so do I, yeah? But the Ku Klux Klan, right? They're racist. Black Lives Matter in America is racist. They killed 30 people now, yeah? About 8 of them are black. No, you don't know their names. You know George Floyd's name. You don't know the black people. A black retired police officer who tried to stop them looting shops, they kicked him to death. Watch the video of it. Yeah? What's his name? Why don't you know his name? He was a great representative of the black community. A hero, actually. You don't know his name, but you're all glorifying George Floyd, who stuck a gun in a pregnant woman's belly and robbed her. Yeah? He was a drug addict criminal. I said, but you're all glorifying him. I said, and then the whole, where it's gone now, I look at Gareth Southgate's football team and you're all getting on your knees and you're going to take our football club out and play in Qatar, are you? Where 6,000 people have died building those stadiums. 6,000 have died. Slaves. There's still slavery now. Yeah. And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to wear your rainbow armband in Qatar? No, you're not. Right? You're not. It's totally factual. Yeah. You take our team to that country, that shithole, that Sharia-driven shithole, yeah, because that's what it is, where homosexuals are executed, where women are oppressed, where if a woman is raped, she needs 4 male witnesses to witness that rape, or she gets punished for adultery. You want to talk about slavery when thousands of people have died building those football stadiums. You want to talk about slavery? It's happening now in Libya. Black people are in cages being sold.
Look what happened in Morocco.
I've seen that video, yeah.
With the refugees.
Yeah, but no one watching this will know about that video. Yeah, that's the reality, because in that video, it's Moroccans who killed loads, yeah, lots of them, and it's the most disgusting video. You've got to see the video. These are men and women laying there, many of them motionless, dead or dying,
yeah,
and they're in cages. And that's 2 weeks ago, or weeks ago, yeah.
But Ukraine is,
Ukraine's a major news for, but it's like black people are, when all those girls were taken in Nigeria by Boko Haram, and they were kidnapped. If you don't believe that if that was white girls, yeah, the military would have gone in and got them. America knew where they were. It come out straight away. America knew where those girls were. They knew where Boko Haram had them. But no one cared. They didn't care. They didn't care. So I get wound up, so even with my mates. So I said, because I do care about black people. Yeah, I went to, because I love them, because I've grown up with them. Yeah, I don't see any difference between the colour of people. Yeah, I talk about ideology. Yeah? Black Lives Matter is not for black people. And the sooner people realise that, the better. It's causing more friction and division in this country than there's ever been. Yeah, getting on your knees at football, which is, if you want to make a symbol, I saw some football teams start coming out and holding arms. Great. But getting down on one knee is a sign of that Marxist ideology and that Marxist organisation in the United States. And you're total hypocrites because you're going to take our club out. You're going to play in a country that still has slaves now. Yeah? You're talking about historical things. What about now? Blacks are still slaves now. In Saudi Arabia, in many countries, treated like slaves. Second-class citizens. So it frustrates me, man. And I think it frustrates me more because I fell out with some people that I loved over it. And I think that they... Do you know what? The way my other mate said it, he goes, Jack, do you know how much trouble we've took for you? Yeah? Because everyone always says he's a racist. And we've always said, no, he's not. Yeah? And we've argued and argued and argued. And when you've gone on this rant against Black Lives Matter, everyone's just like, see?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I get it. But...
Look, it's...
Cool, go for it.
He's deep. And you know what? This is the thing with Tommy. I'm not going to lie. I kind of agree with everything he just said.
So do I. We've said it before. We've said it ourselves.
But this is the problem with Tommy because, yeah, some things, when you're looking at the bigger picture and, he's not addressing another demographic that we can't really talk about.
Remember, we said this. I know what you're going to say. He's going to say things that you like and you agree with. Just like Trump as well.
Yeah. But he's telling the truth. And, those 5 years ago was very weird times. That when they were the statue tearing down, that's vandalism, but nobody got charged for it. Mm-hmm. You can't deny that BLM. If you really look into it, is not what you think it is. Nothing to do with black.
Candace Owens has already exposed it. She went through their tax. What do they call it in America? Tax
returns.
Yeah, right. She went through all that information. Dude, they've been sorting themselves out.
Bro, they had 100 million never
ask yourself this question. Yeah, you're getting hundreds of millions from George Soros and all these other corporations and companies and politicians or whoever, yeah? All of them donating hundreds of millions to this organisation. has your community seen any of that money? No. Here in the UK or in the US? Ask yourself that question. And if the answer is no, you've been scammed.
You've been scammed. And the people, it's one thing for companies to invest in it, but people were donating. There was like, donate to Black Lives, to give a $5 or something like that. Yeah. People were taking these and giving out money to this organization, and none of that money returned to the community. It's all a scam, but it's obviously deeper than just a scam because there's more sinister intentions with it. We mentioned about actually keeping the black population in a lower state and creating more division and, being labeled as, if you're against this, all of a sudden you're a racist. And the fact is, Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with black lives. And then obviously putting into the entertainment, the sports industries and the football games, it was really weird times. And it's still going on today, to be honest.
Well, I don't understand the whole taking the knee thing anyway. What's his name started that in America? I've forgotten his name now.
Kaepernick. Yeah. He kneeled in the NFL. I
was like, what is? I don't understand the symbolism. I don't understand what you're hoping to achieve with that. Awareness
in the NFL, he did it as a protest to what was going on, but now it's like they've tried to reverse psychology it and take the knee in terms of solidarity. But how does that? You're taking the knee. You're saying I'm lesser in a sense.
It was like that when this was all going on. I remember on Instagram, everyone for the day didn't do any post up. They just put up a black post, just like a
blackout or something like that.
And you put up a black post. I was like, what? I just carried on as normal. I was like, I'm not doing this shit. I go, you mad? I go, no, I know what this is. I can already see what this is. Yeah, you lot are taking the mick, out of people, right? And you're all falling for it.
I had a friend who's mixed race, who's got a white mum and a black dad. When that was going on, he decided to put a black and white logo, like the yin and yang, to say it's like, I don't really understand what's going on right now. I'm half. So he put a black and white, and he got a lot of backlash for that. People were like, no, you're missing the point. You have to put a black photo up, like a blacked out picture because it's about Black Lives Matter. He's like, but
So you say my mum. So you say my mum's life doesn't matter.
He was bare confused, and I remember talking to him about it. He was like, it was really weird times for him as a mixed race person because he's hearing a lot of rhetoric from the black communities that are really believing it, and a lot of white people who support this. But then he's also got a white background when he's like, I never saw racism like this. My dad's a successful black person, and my mum's a white woman, and they've had a relationship, and I'm a product of that, and I don't see racism in this clear cut picture. But it was just interesting how the white people were so easily manipulated into buying into this whole BLM stuff. And if you spoke up against it, even as a black person or a mixed race person, it was like, you're the enemy all of a sudden. It's crazy times.
I turn around and say, you do all this stuff, what changes it brought about? And if it hasn't brought any real serious significant change, like massive moves, like you've moved boulders, if you're going to give me little increments of things that have changed, which have happened just to appease you and shut you up, then I'm not interested.
Nothing. I don't even think anything.
Nothing changed.
I don't even think little things happened.
I don't think anything changed.
All that happened was proof that you can get away with looting, rioting, vandalism, and other criminal acts, and no consequences were taken.
As long as it was under BLM.
They took down statues and threw them into the river.
No, I saw all of that.
Nothing happened to those.
I saw all of that. Even I was like, this is stupid, man. And we're from ethnic. We're from that background, and ethnic minorities, And you know what the worst thing is? I remember years ago, a colleague we used to work with, right? Someone put a comment at work where they were upset with the way they were being treated. And they said, well, it's like being treated like a slave, basically you're slave drivers, right? And that person then messaged me separately saying, why is this, why is he saying that? What's this like, he's using slavery and slavery. She got a sense that I go, you mad? I go, you do realise that slavery isn't copyrighted by black people, right?
That's the crazy thing, isn't it? It's been around for...
Slavery's not copyrighted by black people. There were white European slaves, which the Ottomans and the Moors used to take as sex slaves and stuff like that. The Barbary pirates.
The Slavic region is literally...
That were black, that used to take it from white Europeans, and then the tides turned and the white Europeans took over and then started doing business with the Africans who started selling their poor people to the whites, the transatlantic. And I go, you also know Indians were slaves, Chinese were slaves at one point. Every civilization on the face of the planet the poor population within those civilizations were slaves. You know this. Do you know that? Well, I didn't know that. Well, what do you mean you didn't know that? Slavery isn't just copyrighted by the black people. Like Indians,
that's what they teach in the books,
Indians went through slavery too. But guess what, bruv? We got over it. And you look at Indians and how they raise their children, they go on to be successful. They don't say, they teach them about the past, but don't say, don't cling to that.
They also rape every 18 minutes.
You still need to go and make shit happen.
Yeah.
That's what the mindset they give them. Yeah, this will happen. Don't trust those white people. That's what they teach them, right? But you still need to go and make shit happen. But black people, yeah, it's because of slavery.
Well, this is the thing, because it's being pushed in the system, in the educational system, and in, you know, Black History Month and stuff like that. It's great to reflect on culture, but this idea that we need to keep on revising.
It's just like, get over it, man. At some point, you need to get over yourselves and just make shit happen.
Yeah.
Stop making excuses like you can't do it. You can do it. Yeah. If all the other civilizations who have all experienced, their ancestors experienced the same amount of slavery and racial prejudice, and which still goes on now, there's still institutional racism. Yeah. And they have to jump the same hurdles as you can do it and make it happen. Why can't you? And that's why I don't accept it. It's bullshit. But anyway, look, I don't want to get caught up with BLM, man, too much.
Yeah,
we still got loads to get through.
Say for that is just, research BLM. Look, do what Tommy said. Go on their website. You see it for yourself. It's George Soros. Research that. Nope, don't even.
We need to move on. They can do that themselves. Because we got like a 30-minute clip of Mohammed Hijab coming up. Okay. We're like 2 hours or whatever in, man. Lord. Yeah. All right, I'm going to not try and make this long-winded, this introduction, but we're going to now watch clips of Mohammed Hijab, who in a sense is, I would see him as, he's a bit of an intellect. He can have his childish moments and his petty moments like Tommy Robinson too. But these clips were very much how I would like to see Hijab. Like we just saw Tommy, you know, articulate himself pretty intelligently with his points. Yeah, had a few moments that we laughed at. And we will have that with Hijab, as you'll see elements of that with Hijab as well. But yeah, he's very much someone who's well known around speakers' corners. I think he's written some books and stuff like that.
So he's London?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's born and bred here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think now let's see the other side of the argument.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You got all these guys, the social media influencers, the younger guys, that on Twitter, on X, on YouTube, that they're talking about Islam and Muslim, and they're getting into the heads of a lot of these younger guys that say, man, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe that's the way to go. And then some of the stuff that you hear about the way they look at kids, underage, well, you know, because of this, you know, it's justified if somebody this. The other day, one guy said, well, if you show too much of skin and you get...
You know this quote, every accusation is a confession.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like who keeps talking about this? The young girls, and they keep bringing up what they're going to bring up with you right now. I mean, I don't see any imam or any sheikh or lectures on this. But we discussed this, what we're going to be going a little bit deeper in. Why? Because it's putting things in context.
Yeah.
It's refuting the lies, the distortions, the deliberate attacks against the last and final messenger sent to mankind, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, refuting the lies. There's no Muslim talking about marrying his young daughter at that age today or whatnot, but they keep discussing this, and you see the numbers of people who have the most molestation, the abuse of women coming from that demographic on that side. What are your thoughts?
Well, let's start with that, actually. Let me read out something that is going to, I think, interest your viewers quite a lot, right? So this is from, I'll tell you the exact source so that you can see it. It's from equalitynow.org, right? Now, this is what it says. I'm going to read it out, okay? It says, child marriage occurs when one or both of the parties to the marriage are below the age of 18. Child marriage is currently legal in 37 states, okay? And 20 US states do not require any minimum age for marriage with a parental or judicial waiver. And then it continues. It says, nearly 300,000 children were married in the US between 2000 and 2018. The vast majority were girls wed to adult men, many much older. Now, the thing is, if you look at what's happening recently with the grooming situation, the way they've described and framed the situation, okay, is that, you know, you have these Muslim men, these Asian men going for the young girls. It's legal in 37 states to do that. It's legal. Why are you even talking about this? 300,000. If you consider that to be pedophilia, 300,000. If you consider that to be, and this is not, you know, we're talking about 1880. It's on the screen, right? We're not talking about 1880 because someone will say that's historical, right? And the age of marriage was 7 years old in Delaware in 1880, etc. I'm talking about 2025. I'm talking about today. And so if you consider this to be a problem, my point is, why are you pointing fingers at 1,000 white girls that have been groomed in the United Kingdom in northern towns, not even in the major cities, by the way, except for potentially Greater Manchester? This is where the issue is with quote unquote Asian grooming gangs, according to the J report, the Casey report, the Greater Manchester report, etc., etc. But why don't you look about what's going on in the United States of America? If you consider this to be a problem, if you consider this to be pedophilia, all right, 300,000. I would even wager that if you compare that with Muslim countries, you will not find that. So on what basis, on what basis are you making an inquiry? If it's about, okay, well, you've got grooming going on, or couldn't someone argue quite easily that this is grooming? I mean, at what point is it grooming and what point is it not grooming? When you have people that are, you know, of a certain age and much older, and what's grooming and how do you define grooming? So all of these questions here are coming to the fore. But the main thing is, as you mentioned, every accusation is a confession. And the more we look at these numbers and stats, the more we realize that actually the issues that they need to be looking at are in their back garden, not in some town in the United Kingdom, in Rochdale or Telford or Rotherham.
Shoot.
I mean, it's grooming. In my opinion, at least, it's grooming.
37 states.
If you're an older man and you're going for a 15-year-old and marrying them, to me, that fits the definition of grooming. I don't care whether, but she loves me and I love it, but it's like, bruv,
does she love you though?
Young.
Have you groomed her to love you?
That's what I mean. Like, she's too young, and you obviously have got decades of more experience in life and maybe money or whatever. You have manipulation techniques that, whether you know it or not, that to me is grooming by definition.
Yeah. But it's worrying. But he makes a good point as well. You're talking about what's going on this side of the pond, but what's going on in your own backyard? 300,000 girls who are
married under the age,
who were in 37 states where there is no age of consent when it comes to marriage, are getting married, have been married to vastly older men. So he makes a good point there. Like, why are you pointing fingers at us? Look at your own backyard. You know, look at what's going on in America, and you guys haven't got any laws in place to protect these young girls from this type of manipulation and grooming.
Yeah, it's grooming,
as you said, it is grooming. So I think he makes a really valid point there. But it's in the next clip's really long, so you got to pay attention.
Sure.
But he makes a lot of good points in there as well, I feel as well. And this is why it was so important. I wanted to listen to Tommy and give him a shout. Do you know what I mean? I don't want us to be unfair. Because you know what people are, you'll be biased, you're painting Tommy in the bad picture. We didn't paint Tommy in the bad picture at all. And in fact, we agreed with a lot of things that Tommy said, didn't we?
He said so, good stuff.
But I also agree with what Mohammed Hijab's saying here as well. But let's play the clip.
Go on.
You see the point that I'm talking about? We wouldn't even be talking about this. It's not like, there's certain things that now jihad, for example, is to struggle and strive, they keep bringing it up.
We must crush jihad.
This whole issue that we're discussing right now, we don't sit around a dinner table. We're not talking about these things unless we're refuting it, putting it in context, clearing up the lies. And I want to play this next video here. And usually when this is brought up, I'm like, do you have any comment on this?
Even Rebecca was only 3 years old when she got married. A 3-year-old then was equal to, who knows, probably a 20-year-old today.
Again, you bring this up and everybody goes hush hush. Nobody will put this religious group under a microscope, look at their faith. We're like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Islam. Let's put things in context. But I don't think if someone came, you have a daughter who's 9, 10, who wants to marry her right now, I mean, you probably want to knock the guy out. I mean, I don't think there's any Muslim who'll be like, okay, go ahead. I mean, so why is this this keeps coming up? It's like this is the low. It's like a low blow, and it just keeps coming up. So now we got it. We're going to go into it. We're going to it deeper. But what is this like? They can't challenge Islam intellectually on the most important fundamental belief of Islam, that pure monotheism, the belief to only work.
Exactly. That's right. I think that's basically, it's a red herring. The whole thing is a red herring.
It's a red herring.
These questions here as red herrings, and then they mention the Prophet's marriage to Aisha especially, and for them that's the main argument, and it's not even an argument, because what it is an insult, because they've understood it, and this we've discussed before, the fallacies of anachronism and presentism and stuff like that, applying modern standards on ancient societies, etc. But they've done that, and so what they're doing is they're not interested, from what I've seen, because I've been engaging with them. They're not interested in honest academic discussion. They're interested in insult. Okay, so now it's become an insult. So I've gotten to the bottom of this because I started asking a question. And the question I started asking, I said, no problem. You have different rules of ages of consent. Because I said something which will probably come up here in the next thing that we're going to be looking at. So when I was speaking to Sneeko, and what I said to him was that the pedophilia, okay, it's relative. That's what I said to him. And what I mean by that is that it's legally relative. So in one place, for example, is 14 years old as the age of consent. In the other place is 16 years old as the age of consent. Another place is 12 years old as the age of consent. In Western countries, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, in 7 EU countries, it's 14 years old as the age of consent. In the UK, it's 16 years old as the age of consent. So it's relative based on the country that you're in. There's no question that's objectively the case. And I double down on this. I say to you now that it's absolutely relative based on what country, what time, what society, etc. So I asked the public in some of my X tweets, and I asked some of these right-wing people, and in fact, some academics have been responding. A few, even one Cambridge academic responded, and he couldn't answer this question. It's a simple question, okay? And I challenged everyone with it. What is an adult? Matt Walsh recently made this thing called "What is a woman?" Yeah, and it became very popular because they said a woman is this and that. Okay, and these guys, the left wing, were not able to answer that question, etc. And he was trying to make a whole point out of it. I'm making posing a very similar question, which is, what is an adult? Give me an objective scientific criterion for what is considered to be an adult. Now, you can't say, well, an adult is someone who is under the age of 18. Because as if when you're 17 years old and 364 days, and then you wake up on the 365th day and you look at yourself and you become something completely different physiologically and scientifically. It's not the case. So what is it as a scientific measure that makes you an adult? And this question, this simple question, what is an adult, which they have not been able to answer, I think is the thorn in their side. So I've realized that this one simple question is the thorn in their side. Instead of engaging with them and trying to justify and say it was a different time and a different place, and the age of in Delaware was 7 years old and this and that, instead of going through all of that, my strategy of dealing with these insults now is to just simply ask, okay, you talk about pedophilia. Pedophilia is contingent on the definition of adulthood. That's what it's contingent on, because you have to be able to differentiate between a child and an adult. Okay, so if the definition of pedophilia is contingent on the definition of adulthood, in order for us to understand what pedophilia is on an objective and scientific level, then let's ask the question of what is an adult. When you then ask them, you'll start seeing, either they'll say, oh, scientifically it's this, it's capability, it's maturity. When they start using these words, they realize there's not actually one fixed age. And that's why societies in different times, in different places, different countries, and even now, ages of consent are different, because that is a subjective, to a high degree, it's a subjective value judgment based on what physiologists would say, based on what psychologists would say, based on what... There are some things which are not highly subjective. For example, a 3-year-old, we just saw what the guy was talking about. That's not subjective. You can see that there's no argument to be made for any kind of development there. Okay, you cannot make the argument a newborn or a 3-year-old is...
We don't agree with that, obviously. This is something totally...
We're talking about the area which is gray area, which we are talking about. There is a whole gray area that societies have differed on for thousands of years and countries differ on now.
But they should be actually, because now, I mean, here, if you look at the arguments, putting things in context, nobody's trying to change any age of consent. I'm sure right now, if you take a woman, if it would take a woman from that time, you know, and try to equate her to a woman of this time, you got two different 1400 years ago. I mean, it's a different standard of living, different different expectations of how long a person is going to live, etc. You got so many things into the equation. And we'll go a little bit deeper. But my point here is, why are they not, Mohammed? Why are they not going after the person who's making it really clear on 3-year-old? Why are they not putting this way of life under the microscope?
It's because there's a political ambition that they have to try and stamp out Islam and Muslims, because they are threatened by Islam and Muslims. And so they have to attack us. They have to insult us. When they mention the age of Aisha interrogation, they're not doing so because they have a genuine intellectual concern. They are doing so because they are trying to insult us. It's as simple as that. They're trying to insult us. They're trying to make us into backwards people, etc., etc. And that's how I see it. And that's why they're not mentioning, like you mentioned, this guy here, the rabbi coming out and talking about a 3-year-old, which there's no difference of opinion among anybody. That cannot be an adult. And he said the 3-year-old is like a 20-year-old. It's not. I don't see how a 3-year-old can be in any metric. That's not the case.
But they're hush hush when it comes to this. They dare not speak up. They dare not insult.
Exactly. And like you said, we're not trying to change the age of consent in any country. And I think we should always preamble what we're saying with that. If anyone asks me a question about this, I'll say, listen, I'm preambling everything by saying, just to be clear, I'm not arguing for a change of the age of consent in the UK, the US, or any other place. I actually agree that there should be an age of consent, because there's all kinds of abuses happening to people and stuff like that before that. And I think an age of consent is probably a good thing to try and stop those abuses.
Yes, in Saudi, I think it's what is it, 18? In Qatar, it's 17. In Afghanistan, I think it's 16.
Yeah. And some Muslim countries have it as 21, by the way, which is surprising because they have a even higher age of consent than the Western countries.
But you just said earlier, present day on the books, actually in America, it's at what age?
No,
it's at lower ages than the Muslim countries.
In Texas, it says that, for example, that you can get married under the age of 16. There's a legislature that says you can get married.
So it's higher in the predominantly Muslim countries.
Yes, definitely. The age of consent is higher objectively in the predominantly Muslim countries than it is in Western countries. Germany, the age of consent in Germany today is 14 years old, which means that if I go to Germany and have intercourse with a woman, according to German law, I'm not a pedophile, but according to British law, you're a pedophile. In one place, you're on a sex register. In another place, you're not doing anything wrong.
Okay, so we're bringing
Germany though. It's Italy, Germany, Spain, 7 countries in the EU. If they cannot see, then they're low IQ. This is how I put it. You are low IQ if you cannot see this. If you cannot see that it's different in this country, pedophilia is understood differently. In Germany, 1-hour flight you can get from Germany to the United Kingdom. If you cannot see it's different from Germany to the United Kingdom, then you are low IQ. That's what it means. That is legally relative. I stick by what I said. It is legally relative according not just to Muslim majority countries. Put the Muslims to the side. Put those brown people to the side. No problem. You know, these backwards people and these bad people. No problem. Put them to the side. No issues at all. I'm saying that if you go to Germany, if you hop on a plane, 1-hour flight, Germany, and then you hop onto the plane and you go to Spain, you go to Italy, this and that, and then you go to United Kingdom, the situation is different. What is considered pedophilia? It is different in those countries. What is the English word that you would use to describe such difference? Relative. Therefore, pedophilia is relative according to what country you are in the West. It's relative in Western lands, in Western countries, nation states, and legislative programs. That's what it is.
And again, just to reiterate this point, we are talking about this because they keep bringing it up, and this is defending the honor of the last and final messenger sent to mankind, who they are trying to judge according to presentism. And isn't it, if he was going to be charged, they would have charged him at his time. And it's interesting that you don't have any, even of the Islamophobes from 100 years ago, trying to attack him with these arguments. Is that right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. They wouldn't attack him. It's not even anywhere in the world. You only find that these discussions I think that the first person to ever come out against the Prophet ﷺ and speak about it is probably Margoliouth, one of the Orientalists who came out in the late 18 to 90, early 1900s, in fact. It's not seen as aberrational in the United Kingdom or in the West, generally speaking.
Because you'd have to condemn all the founding fathers of America, wouldn't you?
You'd have to condemn essentially everyone, I mean, before the 1900s. Because the thing is, everything changed after World War One. If you look at, for example, there was something called the Marriage Act in the United Kingdom. By the way, the United Kingdom was one of the first countries to change the age of consent from 12, as it was at the time, to 16. And there was something called the Marriage Act, okay? And the Marriage Act took place after World War One. Marriage Act was basically said that the age of consent will move from 12 to 16. And it corresponded with education, okay? Because now people had compulsory education up until 16 years old. So what then happened is it became a social construct that some education of a person is connected to their being an adult or not. Before, there was no such connection between whether you finish education before or not, whether you be considered to be an adult or not. Now, for you to finish education, you're considered to be an adult. If you have not finished education, you're still a child. But that kind of metric of seeing whether someone is capable of being in a marital situation, reproducing, etc., was never the case anywhere in history before. So this is it's a social construct. The new, if you like, if the new definitions of what it means to be an adult are social constructs of the 20th century. That's what they are. They're social constructs. You can't use a social construct of the 20th century, which was actually put in place by feminists. And what I find very interesting is a lot of these far-right anti-feminist people are still using this. Were put in place in feminists because it was the first wave feminists who protested the government to change the age of consent from 12 to 16. And you can see this in the Hansard records and other places. You can't use a social construct of the 20th century to go and attack people of the past about why they married at this age or that age or another. It's not an objective measure. And so when you start speaking to them about facts, they don't really have an answer to the questions. But as I mentioned, the best thing to do when anybody comes, this is from my practice, anyone comes and asks you about the age of Aisha, instead of answering this question, ask them one question. Say, fine, I'll answer you everything you want to answer. No problem. Just one question. What is an adult? Give me an objective and scientific measure. When you'll see them going from pillar to post because there's no one answer for this. Whatever answer you give, you say it's unsatisfactory. You can just simply say, your answer is unsatisfactory because what about this and what about this? Can you not see how this can be subjective? Can you not see how in one culture they can consider it this way and in another country? When they start realizing that the idea of an adult is to a large degree socially constructed, when they understand that, then they can grant concession. But until they cross that barrier and break that down in their minds, they can never give concession to people that lived 1,400 years ago. They cannot see it in their head.
Okay, let's go on to the next part of the podcast where you actually get brought up.
This is Mohammed Hijab. I believe
What's he saying?
He's defending Mohammed is sex with children and calls pedophilia relative.
At all. We think that it's just because we have a different idea of what it means to be a child, which can be tracked historically. In these countries where we live in now, one is legal and one is illegal.
Is this guy trying to justify having sex with a 13-year-old girl? Is this what he's trying to do right now?
Adam, you have to listen to the end. Okay. He's not finished.
And once again, pedophilia is very relative.
Very relative. And
so what are you trying to do, Mohammed? You're trying to change the age of consent?
Hold on. So is it not? Is pedophilia is legally relative as a matter of fact? That's not my opinion. That is a matter of fact. As I mentioned, if you go to Germany, the age of consent is 14 years old. If you go to the United Kingdom, the age of consent is 16 years old. If you go to the United States, in some places, the age of consent is 18 years old. In some other places in the EU, it's go back to 14. In Italy, in Spain, etc. There's 7 European countries, EU countries, which the age of consent is 14. I actually mentioned the age 14. If they had a real problem with it, I don't see them protesting against the German laws. I don't see them protesting against the Spanish laws. I don't see them protesting against Italian laws. So the point I'm saying is this, is that it's relative by virtue of fact. And it's not my opinion. That is a fact. If you're in England and you have intercourse with a 13-year-old, you're a pedophile, or 14-year-old, you're a pedophile. And if you go to America and you have intercourse with the same age, then you're not a pedophile. So it's relative based on the arbitrary measures of policymakers in different parts of the world. That is a matter of fact. If they want to reprimand, they have to now come with an argument against. So is he trying to justify sex with children? Children, that's the whole question. That's the inquiry. What is a child? That is the question. He's poisoning the well. He is begging the question, which is a fallacy. It's called begging the question fallacy. I'm not saying that they're children. I don't believe in having sex with children. No, I don't believe in that. I've never said that once in my entire life.
You never said that once. Let's make that clear.
Of course, I've never said that once. And I think the low IQ, pot noodle eating, weirdo that was sitting there, that maybe he was, sorry to say, watching something, maybe that he shouldn't have been watching before, eating his pot noodles, eating his Krispy Kreme, watching what he shouldn't have been watching in his mother's cellar, had the audacity to speak in that manner and try and inquire in that way without humbling himself and asking questions and being a real man, which he cannot be, and he is not. Yeah, and the other ones there sitting like sitting ducks, low IQ, they don't realize that actually there was nothing in the speech of this man that suggested what this man is suggesting I'm saying. If he was in the United Kingdom, I would sue him for defamation of character. Now, the reason why I'm not doing that, because in the United States, it's much more difficult to do that, and it's much more costly, and he's not that significant anyway, this individual who looked like he was a shoe shiner for Patrick Bet-Davis. Maybe he was shining some shoes and stuff like that and cleaning in the toilets. And then they said, just come in for a second. We've run out of guests today. Come, just sit here and just fiddle with the computer. Make yourself useful. And give us some coffees and teas as well and some Krispy Kremes. And you know how to make the pot noodles, so might as well make that one as well. So this guy who is a nobody, who's trying to challenge me, and Bet-Davis, we spoke to Bet-Davis, me and you, and we spoke, we had a good conversation, never disrespected the man myself. I've only held him to account in the proper and meaningful way where he has, overcrossed the boundaries. Should have had the integrity, the intellectual integrity, to stop this this chump from saying the stuff that he was saying, but he didn't have that, and we don't expect that from them.
Let's go on to a couple more clips. Let's go to the next one.
And guys, and let's just go back, because Jesus Christ, what I'm saying, we're Christians, and you have to say what it is. Jesus Christ spread love, spread peace, spread all that type of stuff. Was he a virgin, Tom? Jesus Christ?
Yes.
Okay. He's treated women great. If we're going to go according to many Islamic historical sources, including the Hadith, collections of the Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad was betrothed to Asia when she was 6 years old, and the marriage was consummated when she was 9 years old. I'm just throwing out facts. This guy's name is Muhammad. That's what he's basically preaching, is that this is that type of mindset. And
I mean, we've read this and we've seen this, right?
All right, he brought up Jesus. He started off with Jesus. We can have a lot to say here. What do you
here? Well, the first thing I will say is that they believe that Jesus is the author of the Old Testament because he's part of the Trinity. Because don't forget, they believe that the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit are one God. And therefore, it would follow that he's the author of the Old Testament. And it would also follow, therefore, that when Jesus, the part of the Trinity mentioned, the person of the Trinity mentioned in Numbers chapter 31:18, that take the young ones for yourself. And almost all rabbinic commentators said that young ones means prepubescence, actually. There is no such equivalent verse in the Quran. There's no such equivalent hadith in the Prophet's sayings. There is nothing in Islam that says you can take the young ones, the prepubescence for yourself. So according to them, Jesus Christ, he ordered people to essentially, and some commentaries actually say, rape them, sexually assault them without their will, sorry to say. So if you're saying you 1000% disagree with it, then can you please come online and tell us that you 1000% disagree with the Bible, and 1000% disagree with Jesus Christ, and 1000% disagree with Numbers chapter 31 verse 18, and 1000% disagree with the injunctions given therein? I can 1000% guarantee that this chump will not do that, because he does not have the intellectual prowess or the integrity. He's not integrous enough to be able to face his own contradictions. And in fact, his argument has collapsed under the weight of the internal contradictions therein. So I would say to you that the first thing, if you wanted to mention Jesus, is to mention what I've just mentioned, and especially this verse of Numbers chapter 31:18. You can go and look into, there is a website called Sephardim.com, which shows you all of the commentaries of the Old Testament, especially the rabbinic commentaries, using the Hebrew language aforetime about this, the Talmudic commentaries, the Babylonian Talmud, the Palestinian Talmud, about this particular verse, and it's pretty clear. And even some translations into English talk about young girls. It's pretty clear if you look at the sources, this is talking about the prepubescent ones. So the right-wing people and this man and other people that want to accuse the Prophet Muhammad of such and such and this and that, you have to first deal with this inquiry before you start speaking about Islam. And then now, we've already addressed this, but then I'll address it again. He started mentioning about Aisha, at the age of 9, etc., etc. And the response to this is as follows. As we both mentioned, and quite rightly so, me and you and the rest of the Muslim people and the majority of the populations, especially in the West, do not condone or are asking for a change in the age of consent, whether in the UK, in the US, in the EU, or even in the Muslim countries. We have no such desire. There's not been one protest movement, one lobby group. By the way, I'm not sure if you know this, in the UK, there was in fact an organization called PIE, which is linked to the Labour Party, which is the party that is in charge now of government, that was officially politically lobbying for the reduction of the age of consent. Yeah. So the only people that actually have that history are the very people that are in power in these countries. We don't have such a wish or desire to change the age of consent. Having said that, when we make the apologia, for example, for the argument, the polemical argument, that's what we're doing. We're making a historical argument for the age of Aisha at 9-year-old. And by the way, if we really wanted to say this, we could, that someone could say, is it possible, the question is, to be a Muslim and believe in the revisionist account of her being 18, for example? It's possible. It's not an article of faith. There is no takfir or excommunication issued therein. Is believing that Aisha being the age of 9 years old an article of Islamic faith? Is it one of the 5 pillars of Iman or one of the 5 pillars of Islam? No, it's not. So someone can conceivably be a Muslim and not even believe in that anyway. But putting that to the side, I will say this. I do believe in the historical account of 9 years old. And I personally believe it goes back to social and societal norms. I personally believe it's to do with how people define adulthood at that time, comparative to how we in most of the world define it in our time due to society. And someone will say, and this is the counter argument, well, didn't you say that your prophet was a prophet for all humankind? So how comes he's doing this and you're saying we shouldn't do it? The answer is, the same prophet that told us this also told us that society changes. And he told us all of the rules. He told us all of the rules of how to deal with a changing society. For example, the principle of harm, the principle of necessity in Islam. La darar wa la dirar, la darar wa la idrar. These are all hadiths of the prophet, that you cannot harm or reciprocate harm. And I would posture and wager that what you do with a 13 or 14 or 12, whatever it is, year old, 1,000 years ago, where they had a completely different upbringing and a completely different social structure, is completely different to what you do with them here, where they are mollycoddled and got sent to school every day, and they have a completely different lived experience. And therefore, I would say, yes, pedophilia, it is relative to one's definition of adulthood by historical fact, by current legalistic reality, and therefore, you don't have a right, I would say, to accuse our Prophet Muhammad of such a heinous crime without taking into account those relativistic differences and cultural sociological differences. That's how I would say.
You mentioned Jesus, peace be upon him, who we love and revere, as one of the mightiest messengers sent for his people at his time. And now, if you make that argument that now, because he started off as he's love, he's peace, and so if he's 1 and 3 in the Trinity, he's God. So he's giving these orders, yes, which you quoted numbers, take the little ones for yourselves.
Exactly.
Wouldn't he also be the one that dictated that Mary, that she be 12 when she gave birth to Jesus?
Yes, exactly. And there are many, many reports that indicate that age. And just as there are many, many reports that indicate Rebecca was 3 years old. And you'll find that all over the Jewish sources. But these are things that they'll just hand wave off. They don't care about any of that stuff. Because remember, now Christianity has become a thing which you can just pick and choose from. So people metaphorize that which they don't want. All those genocides that I mentioned in the Old Testament, all those things they don't like, they just metaphorize it. They just, all those scientific inaccuracies, that bogus claims of the creation of the universe, 7-day rest, anything they don't like, they'll just metaphorize it as a metaphor. And so for them, the situation, they'll just hand wave it off. But one thing that this guy said, which I think is also worthy of mentioning, is that he connected this hadith of the Prophet Muhammad SAW with the behavior of the groomers in the UK. Now, in sociology, okay, you need to be able to prove causation. If you want to make a causative case, a cause is something when you say A is the reason for B. It's the reason. A correlation is different. You could say, for example, okay, that it's getting hot in July, but at the same time, pumpkin sales are going higher. There's no correlation. There's no causation. There's a correlation, but there's no causation. But if it's Halloween time and it's October, then you can make a causative case. They say, but people are buying pumpkins because of Halloween. Now, if you're making a causative case between the religion of Islam on the one hand and the grooming that took place on the other, then what you need as a sociologist, as a proper academic, is you need to make a causative argument to show the link between A and B. And in this case, what would be sufficient, or at least something to speak about, is a testimony from these groomers themselves saying, we were inspired by the hadith. We don't believe it's haram. We don't believe it's wrong to take these white girls and to do this. How comes from all of the reports that I've read and all of the police reports and the people that I've challenged in the last 2 weeks, not one of them has been able to show one single report in the United Kingdom of someone citing religious reasons for the reasons why they've done that. Whether obviously if they're non-Muslim, but if they are Muslim, if they are Asian, we don't find one single report of an individual saying, I have been inspired, incentivized, or otherwise motivated by my religion. The challenge, therefore, would be produce one report. Surely you should, of all these cases that took place in Telford, in Rotherham, in Rochdale, and there was over 1,000 white girls that were badly abused by these horrible, horrendous, horrific, monstrous, condemnable, abominable individuals. Not one of those individuals has been able to come with a single report saying that the reason why I did this was because of my religion. How comes? The fact that you have not been able to produce one report like that means you are disqualified from being able to make a causative case, the like of which you have tried to make. And that's why there's no bona fide academic that makes, by the way, the causative case. Not one bona fide sociologist in peer-reviewed journals that make the causative case because it's too difficult to make. They know that. And in almost all the reports that have been written by the CSA and the Home Office and the Cobain report and this and the book that she wrote in 2018, Ella Cobain in 2018, none of that links the Asian grooming gangs, etc., to the religion of Islam. So this man is academically inept. He is incapable of reaching that level of inquiry. He's incapable of making the case. He's creating a problem out of nothing. And as I've mentioned, if his issue is of men who are over a certain age being in sexual relationships with women that are under the age of 18 or even the under the age of 16, then you've got 300,000 cases according to statistics from the year 2008 and 2018 in the United States of America itself, which, by the way, as we mentioned, the majority of the states don't even have an age of consent, or they have an age of consent which is below the age of 18. Okay, what you have to worry about? Why are you worrying about what's happening in Telford and Rochdale and Rotherham? In these towns, by the way, if you've been, they're not even cities in the UK, where disenfranchised and poor people are doing all kinds of mad stuff. Yeah, if you meet these people, you're going to tell me they're religious. They're not religious people. These guys are thugs, and they were giving alcohol and giving alcohol and giving drugs to the girls and stuff. Like, what is alcohol and drugs now become part of the Islamic package? I don't think so. So, I think that the fact that they're making this case is pathetic and it's embarrassing, and it's something which they're only doing because their prophet and their true God, okay, Elon Musk, decided because of his H-1B visa situation to say such and such a thing. But there will be something coming out about Elon Musk which will shock the public, which I will be publishing on Thursday, which will shock the public. It's the most scandalous thing, and I'm keeping it with me. It will completely shock the British public. It will come out in 2 days. It will shock the entire public about Elon Musk, and I have the information, and no one else has the information that I have, and I'll be producing this information in 2 days, and people will be shocked to know what happened.
Cool. A lot said there from Mohammed Hijab, and I get where he's coming from, but I think a lot of people are going to twist that into still that he's promoting paedophilia in a sense.
Yeah, I can see where people misinterpret him.
Mm-hmm.
I do actually agree with his reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
It is technically, legally.
Let's make it clear though. He has said in that 30-minute clip, he has said he does not condone paedophilia, underage sex. He does not condone. They're not trying to get the
sex with children is
they're
wrong.
not trying to get the age of consent changed
No,
here
no.
in the UK or anywhere in the world. Sex with children is wrong. Yeah, what's happening to those girls or what's happened is wrong. He condemns it. He condemns these people who claim they're Muslims, these men who are claiming they're Muslims. They're not Muslims because they're going against Islam, because they're piling them with alcohol and cocaine and drugs like that, which is against Islam. So it's a sin. So he says he's condemning all of it. But what he is putting, I suppose, a thought-provoking question: what is an adult?
Yeah,
he's saying if you go to different parts of the world and different countries, seven of them in the UK will give you a different age of what an adult is, because that's the age of the consent. So they're now an adult. They can have intercourse if they want. Germany is 14, Italy is 14, Hungary is 14. There were other European countries there that were 15. Yeah, we saw one, was it 12? Was it Korea or something like that?
Philippines, Nigeria is 11, I think it said.
Japan was 13. I know they had it up there as 13, but in 2023 they changed it to 16. But before that it was 13.
Yeah. It is relatively
37
legally,
states in America don't have an age of consent for marriage. And they showed 300,000 since 2008 to 2018, I think he said, of 300,000 girls have got married who are very young, under what you would class as the age of consent, to older gentlemen. I wouldn't even call them gentlemen, older men.
Yeah.
All right. Which we've already just said is pretty much grooming.
It is grooming.
It is grooming. Yeah. So the argument is now, what is the age of consent? What is an adult? He put a good question there, didn't he?
Can't think of an answer on the spot right now. He's a thought-provoking one. What is an adult? I think that's probably a bigger question than what is a woman.
Yeah.
What is an adult?
Because I know, listen, I work with women in their 60s and all different age groups, as you do, yeah? But in my field, right, some of these women who are in their 50s and 60s have the maturity level of a 5-year-old. Most of the people are, not even the women, the men as well, right? The majority of them have the maturity level of a 5-year-old. We work together, you know what I'm talking about, yeah? Level of a 5-year-old. So does that mean that 60-year-old is no longer an adult because they're not mentally mature or emotionally mature? Like, how do you measure it? How do we measure it?
Yeah, it's about being, because the mental thing is more subjective, because obviously you got fully developed physically and fully developed mentally. Fully developed physically is pretty obvious to see.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of biologically, you know, menstruating and, you know, their parts enlarge and stuff like that, you can see it. But then if they're still mentally underage and not developed, then they're still a child. But if you're saying like, yeah, at 60 years old, people can still be mentally like a child. I don't know. It's a good question. What is an adult?
You know what? I feel like, you know what? You need to draw a line in the sand. Yeah. And sometimes I wonder, like, why have they chosen 16? You finished education, and you made a good point. You finished education, so now you're an adult. Is that because now some of you are going to go and get full-time jobs straight away off the back of this and not go to college, university and stuff like that? So we need to tax you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right? Yeah. Money comes into it as well, right? Whereas if you still say, well, hold on, I'm still a kid, why are you taxing me for? Well, I shouldn't be taxed. You should let me build some money. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's loads of angles you've got to look at this from. If you're asking
but
me,
scientifically, what would you say as an adult?
I don't know how to answer that question. Like, yeah, I think mental maturity, physical maturity, but then again,
but what defines mental maturity?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Like, I've already given examples of that. Like, some people are in their 60s, they still behave like 5-year-olds.
Yeah,
petty, children, like, in their behaviors and stuff, can't even tie their own shoelaces. It's like, come on, really? You can't use your own initiative? How do you run your life? And I see it all the time. Do you know what I mean? And then I think, like, do you just put an age in place that you can firmly say, okay, that's an adult, right? Regardless of their mental maturity, physical maturity is there. That's an adult. And the age I'm gonna give it 20 years old.
20, not 21. Not 19? Why do you draw the line at 20?
Because I feel like teenage years, I think, it could be 21. Could be 21. I'm not saying against 21. I'm just saying that I think it needs to be a lot. I think at 20, you're maybe a little bit mature than you are 16. I'm not saying greatly. I'm talking about from a point of consent and intercourse and things like that, because that's what the topic's about, right? Is 20 the right age? I don't know. I'm just throwing an age out there. Yeah, because I was thinking I was thinking about it the other day. But I'm thinking about age of consent. I'm not like I can't put like his question. What is an adult? Like, okay, how do I measure that now? It's true. How do I measure that? How do I measure who's an adult, who's not an adult? Like, do we assess every individual? Right, you're an adult. You're fit. You've got consent.
More government control then,
you've got consent. Like, it can't work like that, right?
Can we just define what we mean by consent? Are we saying like an older person going for a younger person, or what if they're both say 15 and 15 years old? Is that still technically breaching the age of consent?
Well, is that just our program? But remember, our programming is that here in the UK anyway, right? That anything below the age of 16 is you're a paedophile.
Basically, yeah.
But although you and me would sit as well, but if you're sleeping with a 16-year-old or 17-year-old or even an 80-year-old and you're a 30-year-old man, even if you're a 25-year-old man or a 26-year-old man,
we're not having that.
So we're not having it. There's something wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
It's not right. Yeah?
It's not right.
It's not right. Yeah. So
like
even that's too young. You're barely legal, we call it, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we measure that? Like if we feel like 16, but that's because our brains are programmed to, because here we've been told 16. And then even a little bit over 16, like 17, 18, 19, we still feel like, that's still... But then if you turn around and said a 30-year-old man was dating a 20-year-old girl, would you as much say it? Or would you feel it's... I don't know, the women might, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know how...
It really depends, because like, imagine
it's weird.
How do you measure it? If they're still at school, if they're still in student accommodation and stuff, and you're 30 years old and been working for the last 10 years,
you still,
it's a weird one. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, so how do you measure it?
More accepted, I guess, but how do you measure it?
I suppose is that how? That's what I'm getting at. Like, that's why I probably said 20, because I thought maybe that's more accepted.
21 is when you finish.
You're not gonna get called a pedo. You're gonna be called maybe a perv, but not a pedo.
Yeah, it's true, actually. But
right?
Technically, you wouldn't be called a pedo after the age of consent, which is 16. So technically, at 18.
But you wouldn't, because you would say
we would
say locally we would say you're borderline, aren't you?
Yeah, locally.
Aren't you?
Amongst the people, we'd probably still call them a pedo, even if you're a 30-year-old for a 19. You're still a pedo in our eyes, but legally,
look what his question's done to us. We're trying to work it out, and we're like, we can't. We're like, how? What is an adult?
It's a tough one.
And I get it. Remember, he's not condoning any of this kind of behavior. We're not condoning any of this kind of behavior. But he makes good points. It's like, what is an adult then? Tell me. You're going to criticize like things from traditions from 1400 years ago. Forget that. That's 1400 years ago. It happened throughout the world in every society, right? Correct. Yeah. Stop bringing that up. Yeah. He's clearly telling you Islam does not teach you that. Yeah. So any Muslim that's telling you they've got the right to do this is perversing the teachings of Islam, and they're lying. Yeah, this is a man who understands his own religion. He's well spoken, well articulated. He knows his religion. He's telling you, no, it's not accepted in Islam. Yeah. Yes, Muhammad didn't marry. He was honest. He says, I believe the historical number was 9 years old of Aisha. But But that was 1,400 years ago. We don't accept that now. But the same prophet who's done that, you're trying to chastise and go after, is also telling you that society will change. Things will change. The norm will change. What is accepted and not acceptable and not acceptable will change. Yeah. So it's a good question he's put out there. What is an adult? And different countries have different ages of consent. Why don't you all come together? Like, you can all agree on the Arctic Treaty. You can all agree on an Antarctic Treaty, regardless of that you guys are at war with each other. But you can't come up with a global number for the age of consent. And agree upon it that, we need to protect children.
Yeah. I think that's the ultimate question, isn't it?
So, like, I threw 20 out there because I just thought, you know why I threw it out there? Because I thought it sounds better than a teenage number.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Like, you're still a teenager. Maybe 20, you're not a teenager anymore. You're an adult now. You'd hit 20. You're out your teens. So maybe that's the way I looked at it. That's why I chose probably 20. But you're right as well. Like, well, why not 21?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
I mean, like what you mentioned about leaving school and so that they can tax us. So now you're bringing money in. But like, for example, in America or even in the UK, you can join the army at 16. So you can go to war at 16, but you're saying you can't have sex at 16 by age of consent. And then drinking is 18. In America, drinking's 21. So it's like, what's the hierarchy for drinking, driving, joining the military, and then the age of consent? Like, what?
That's another thing as well.
Define an adult.
Where do we like if you're going to say
children?
I was going to say that's what doesn't make sense. So like, if we went with my number of 20, then I honestly believe you would have to change the laws around alcohol to 20. You'd have to change the law around smoking to 20.
Yeah.
You'd have to change the law around driving to 20. Yeah, because you're not mature enough to do all that stuff because you're not an adult yet. But when you're 16, you can apply for, I don't know if it's still like when I was younger, even though they changed, like you could start driving at 17, you could apply for it at 16, your provisional license. Yeah. And then 17, you start taking lessons and blah, 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 whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if that's the case, and that lines up with the age of consent as well. So would that line up with the age of 20 if we were to run with the number I put out there? But then alcohol would have to go with that. Cigarettes would have to go with that. Right?
But like you said about going to work, a lot of people might just decide to be a man in a van when, tradespeople, when they're 18 and they're working.
Do you tax them though? Do you tax them because they're still underage? They're not adults officially? Like there's loads of things like I just feel like there's a lot of stuff there to break down.
But then scientifically, I think his point was that you can't put a number on it scientifically. Or how do you put a number on it scientifically?
No one could. He said I put that question to everyone and no one can. We're doing it right now. We're going all over the place. Trying to
ask ChatGPT.
Go on. Yeah.
What is, you want to hear his voice? Let's put him on the speaker.
Hello. It's lovely.
Hi there. Hey, how's it going? Hi
there. You know.
I have to choose a voice.
Hey, what's up?
Just pick any old voice, man. Hey. Making people wait.
Sorry.
How's your day going?
What is an adult? What is an adult?
What is a human adult, you mean?
What is
a human adult? What would you like to know about adults?
What is a human adult?
A human adult is someone who has reached full physical and developmental maturity, generally considered to be around 18 years or older. Does that help?
But how do you scientifically define mental maturity?
Mental maturity is often defined by cognitive development, emotional regulation, and the ability to make reasoned decisions. It's a combination of brain development, life experiences, and emotional intelligence. This can vary from person to person.
So you could be 15 and be mentally mature?
Yes, it's possible for someone younger to exhibit mental maturity. It depends on their experiences, environment, and personal development.
How do you define the age of consent?
The age of consent is the legally defined age at which a person is considered capable of consenting to sexual activity. It varies by country and jurisdiction, typically ranging from 16 to 18 years old.
What would you say the age of consent should be?
The age of consent is determined by laws and societal norms, which aim to protect young people. It's important to follow the legal standards set by each region.
No, but if we're saying that the age of consent should be when they're an adult, based on your definition of what an adult is, where do you put a number of the age?
Legally, the age of consent is often set based on a combination of biological, psychological, and societal factors. These factors
stop it. So even ChatGPT's confused.com.
Yeah,
because he said it's 18, but then when you said you could be mentally mature at 15, well, yes, you could. So
yeah, like, nobody knows actually.
No one knows. Even Chat AI can't even tell you.
Shit. But at the same time, I think instinctively you should know whether this person's a child or not. And whether you're grooming and taking advantage of somebody who's not.
But 16 is still a child. 17 you're still a child, I feel.
That's what I mean.
18 you're still a kid. 19 you're still a kid. 20 you're probably not developed completely as a mental maturity, but there's going to be elements of that child still in you.
20-year-old still
21, you might be just coming out of university, getting your first job. But at the same time, at 16 you're expected to get your first job, because if you're not going to continue with your education, you have to work. So
I'll have to think about that one. Maybe we can revise that in another.
But yeah, no,
like to think about.
But I think he made good points.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what he said. I think we did talk about the different religious texts, and I think this is just my opinion.
Yeah, do you want to cover the bits where he was talking about Jesus and the scriptures?
Because obviously, when he mentions numbers, and I mean, he did highlight what the rabbi was saying, which I won't go into too much detail, but he did mention the rabbinic texts that they follow and what they say. And they do actually believe in some extreme stuff, which nobody talks about. So it's easy to get into this whole battle between what Islam's preaching and what they're not preaching, and what Christianity may or may have not said in the Old Testament and stuff. But there is a demographic that follow the Old Testament, and some of their laws that he was talking about do talk about some extreme stuff about how humans should treat, or how they should treat non-followers, which doesn't get covered enough. But what he did mention about Jesus, and it's a weird one because he's lumping Jesus into the Old Testament. And while Jesus plays a massive role in the Old Testament, biblically speaking, Jesus came almost to correct some of those Old Testament teachings. So, save all the youngs and stuff like that in what he was talking about. Well, Jesus ultimately came to say, preach love God, love your neighbor, and cause no harm to others. And if you're saving these youngs and you're doing it in a manipulative way, then you're basically going against his teaching. So it's not as clear cut to go against Christianity just because what the Old Testament was saying. And I thought that was a little bit misguided, but I get he was. I think
he was having a shot at the guy who was making the comments about him, who he knew was a Jew himself, and and that guy has. Not Pat, because Pat's Iranian, and he came to the US when he was very young. But the guy on the right of Pat, he's a real dipshit, in my opinion, because I saw him on a debate with someone else regarding Gaza and Israel. But he was referring to him, and that's why he started picking into the Old Testament a little bit. But then obviously the other guy started talking about Christianity, which I thought was really funny because he had to turn to the guy on his left to confirm and fact check that he was right about that. Jesus was a virgin, right? I'm like, so you're not a Christian then, because you don't even know that basic information. Like, I know what you said off record, but on the paper, on the book, within the religion, Jesus is a virgin, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. But I know that since I was a kid. How is it you as a Christian, a good Christian who's supposed to know their religion, don't even know that bit of basic? Which I just thought, like, you're full of shit a little bit there as well.
They're just trying to argue, isn't it, ultimately?
Yeah, and I think they're just trying to push a narrative, innit, which is their political narrative and agendas, whatever they got against Islam and each other, and it was going off a little bit. But like, I also do feel like I agree with a lot of things that Tommy said. But I also agree with a lot of things Mohammed Hijab said there as well.
But I think
I can't disagree with him with what he's trying to say. He's not saying it's right, but he's saying, like he said, I could go to Germany, have intercourse with a 14-year-old, fine. Come back here, get called a paedophile.
Yeah. And I think, or I feel as well, the battle between Islam and Christianity. Look, we spoke about it in our last episode, the Third World War. The Third World War will be a religious war, and it's going to be kicked off because Islam and Christianity.
And we don't even know if that's actually going to be a war with guns and weapons. It might be just what we're seeing now, which is they're going back and forth with each other the way they are.
Back and forth. It might get the tension might heat, but ultimately there's a third religious power in that trinity of Abrahamic religions,
which is Judaism.
Islam. Well, I'm not saying.
Just saying.
People know it though.
Everyone knows that.
You got the sun, Christianity. You got the moon for Islam, and there's the star, which we all know which star we're talking about.
Yeah.
But they kind of are orchestrating this whole feud, and it's the division is going to start kicking off when actually we all agree at the fundamental level of the same truth.
Cool. Look, this has been a long episode so far.
Yeah.
There's loads more I wanted to go through.
It's been a roller coaster.
But I think at this point, I'm going to play one little small clip to finish it off. I think we need to do a part 2.
I think we'll have to do a part 2
because there's so much I haven't covered. Because there's
there's
Mehdi Hassan, there's Katie Hopkins I want to talk about, there's Akala I want to talk about, and there's other kind of things I want to talk about. It's kind of like the good stuff as well that some people say about religions and stuff like that. So kind of want to talk about that as well. And we're just going to go on for another 3 hours otherwise if we go this way. Yeah. So we're going to cut it off here. But so far I would say, look, listen, we are completely against any crimes against kids, women, any violence or any crimes, especially against kids here on our podcast. We want to make that clear. Yeah, we're not trying to defend anything. I think most of the people you listen to today weren't trying to defend anything or protect anyone necessarily. Even Mohammed Hijab, don't take it out of context. Actually try and understand what he's trying to say to you there. He made a good point, which is what is an adult? Because in different countries, basically, an adult is a different age. You know, one country is 14, one country is 15, one country is 13, one country is 16, one country is 18. Like, what is it? Do you know what I mean? And we've struggled with that question. AI, Chat GPT,
going around in circles with that question.
Struggled with that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So try and be open-minded when you're watching what you've just watched, and please share it, of course, as well. But any final thoughts from you?
No, I'll just second that. I mean, from the beginning of this podcast, we've covered some really, really sensitive topics and really got into the depths of it and how it's not as clear cut as what the media is going to push. And, we also have to be open-minded to hearing the narrative, in terms of it's disgusting from all sides, and we shouldn't have to follow this label, these identity politics and singling out certain sects, because it's happening in all cultures and we need to address it all.
Yeah.
But being open to it, being open-minded to the reality of it means that we can further share and protect the innocent.
Cool. Listen, look, do encourage you guys to go and watch other episodes, especially go watch the UK riots one. We covered a lot off in that with this sort of stuff as well. Going to leave it at that. Like it, share it, subscribe to us. Look, YouTube doesn't give us the support that most other channels get out there, even though we're talking about the same stuff that they're talking about.
Yeah.
We seem to be getting pulled down left, right, centre, and then we look at it and we go, hold on, all these channels over here are talking about it. Why are we getting pulled? There must be some truth to what we're saying, in my opinion. As you can tell, we diligently, when I put these things together, I look for evidence and I look for actual evidence and contents and to provide that to you. So we're not putting bullshit out there, basically. So if you are listening to this, like it, share it, subscribe, and help us promote our brand, I suppose.
Yeah, send us some stuff as well that you think we should cover. And if you got any more information on these topics, please do.
Cool. All right. Until next time, I'm Cypher.
I'm Treble.
I'm out.
God bless.
Laters.